I'm the only girl. My father passed when I was 7. Yeah, and that's how we grew up. My mom was a widow, so she raised us like that. Yeah.
So did you go to school from Masaka, or you?
No. So we stayed in Kampala around Tinda, and that's where we grew up in Chigowa. And I went to school. I remember my very first time at school in there was a school called Davjan in Tinda. That's where it all started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You went all through to?
Then I went to Kalinabili for primary. After Kalinabili, I went to Eagle's Nest Secondary School, Elim Pentecostal Church. And then I transferred again to Kalinabili, and then I finished secondary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you have any boyfriends in secondary? You know, girls sometimes.
Well, there was this particular guy, I think around senior 6, and we weren't really like in a formal relationship. It's like people kuchalo, they were talking about gundi namulabine gundi. So I was like, okay, let me start being with this person, because now it's just everyone is saying. But he was my good friend, and you know, would just study together. We would walk together to the National Library, and we would just really study together.
Okay.
Yeah, but so it really nothing really happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when do you meet your first boyfriend?
I met my first boyfriend when I went to campus after senior 6. Around about, I can't figure out the years. My memory is a bit, but I met him when I went to campus. I was studying Cisco and IT. That's when I met him. He was a little older than me. But I think it was, you know, like what brought that is because I had grown up from a background where my father had passed away. My dad passed away when I was 7. That was around, I was in primary. So I was looking for a father figure mainly. You know, we go through relationships, so we go through life and try to find a belonging in life. Nga tetujja we tuli nga wulira neewaka tojja okuba omuntu g'oyagala ennyo akutwaliddwako. I used to love my father very, very much. So it was hard, you know, living life through without him around. Yeah, so that's how I met this guy. Like I said, he was a little older than me.
Kati nga ggwe omulaba mutaata?
Yalina okwagala okwa ekintu ekikulu.
Which you missed?
Which I had really missed growing up. Like I said, I was the only girl, I was daddy's girl, you know. So I grew up, and personally I have a very independent mind. So no one would, you know, try to put me, you know, like, you know. So this guy had mature love.
Yes.
No games, no what. So we dated for about a year. And then one time I had a dream. I had a dream when I was seeing him holding a baby. And then he had a son. So I dreamt when I saw him with a baby, and then he has his son. So I'm like, so when I woke up, I called him. He's like, well, I wanted to talk to him. So we met, and as I shared my dream, he was so frightened. I also didn't know the impact of my dreams. I didn't know that I get dreams and, you know, they were really true. But after 2 weeks, he came and confessed that actually he had another, like his former girlfriend, and she had returned pregnant. So it was quite a sensitive situation.
By then?
Yes, nalokoka ndi wa miaka 10. Because that was I got saved under a mango tree, and these guys who were talking to us were from Compassion International, and they mentioned that God was the father to the fatherless. And so that touched me a lot. I'm like, if I could find a father, another one, because I yearned for that love, I yearned for that sense of belonging. And so I got born again at 10. Now, round about at 14, 15, my mother did not agree with my faith, and I was strong-headed. I still am, especially when it comes to the things of God. No one will stand in between me and God. So when she wanted to, you know, get in between, I was like, fine. I left the home. I went and stayed at school for about 3 to 4 years. And my friends would come, they would buy me a chindazi, things like that. Life went on. Eagle's Nest was really a free school. And so that's how I lived my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying you now find out that he actually came and told you, your boyfriend then?
Yes, he came and told me that there's this lady who was the mother to his first kid. She was pregnant. And he said he did not know.
The mother to his first kid?
He had a son. Yes, I knew him and we were friends. We were really great friends actually. I love kids, especially those I can relate with closely. Yeah.
Kati our relationship nekomao ngotegedde nti ate alina omwana.
Bwe nasooka ne nkitegeera kyannuma. But usually my kind of, you know, character or personality, I don't like, it doesn't hit me immediately. I first, if I hear something, I take it on for some time and think about it, think about the pros, the cons, the what. I don't make decisions so rushed. I'm so slow sometimes, but I'm very decisive. So it took me a few months. And then this lady had to give birth. In the hospital, they could not, she could not give birth. Like he called me, she's like, she's not giving birth, please pray for us. They all knew I was prayerful. So I was like, God, how can I pray for this, really? It was a test. But later at around midnight, I was like, you know what? Whoever has a fault, I don't know. And I told God, please, I forgive her. I forgive him. Please let her give birth. I prayed and interceded for her. And then after 30 minutes, he called me. Wow. But I prayed one thing. I said, God, let her not give birth to a baby girl.
Why? So by then, you know, relationship with you.
He was my first boyfriend. I really loved him. My family had already gotten to know him. Like it was a crazy situation. But later, I saw that this woman was in pain because she would call me. She's like, so I noticed maybe he's not being true in some things. Also because he had a Muslim background. Although for me, he came to me and he said he was born again because I met him in Watoto. Anyway, however, I just decided to let go. I went and put it all at the altar. I remember that was an overnight in Watoto church, 31st overnight. I laid it out to God. And I told him, I'm sacrificing this all up. I know I love him, but I cannot break a relationship. If I put myself in that lady's shoes, I would not want anyone to do that to me. So I then called off the relationship. He thought it was a joke because usually I talk and someone thinks I'm joking.
So what was he telling you? Kwanga in the middle of all this saga, alina omukazi already amuzalamu omwana kati azadde owokubiri kati nga gwe wajjajja oli akugamba nti kintu nawe nkwagala
nti oli tamwagala nti first of all bali simanyi senga we yali yamugaana okumuwasa, like they couldn't even do kuchala and something like that. The thing that really shocked me here is the fact that I even had a dream about these things, you know, and I just told him, you know what, whatever you cannot tell me, God can tell me, you know, God speaks.
Can hide from God.
Yes. So he kept running after me. He kept, you know, looking for me from my family, wherever. My family still knows him. They know how much, you know, they say he really loved me. But it wasn't workable, especially because I was a Christian woman, I was a Christian girl. I had values to keep, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to the altar and laid it off?
I laid it off. I forgave all of them and moved on with my life. And then I asked God for a husband. That was around, I think I was about 21. You know, the relationship I'd created with this boy really affected me. I felt like I just wanted to have my own child, someone to call me mommy, you know, and then a home to belong, a place to call home, a family to love me and me to love them back, you know. I am more like a person of family, you know. So I went and asked God that same overnight, and I told him, Lord, by the year end, I have to be married. Nedda, I did not have any people telling me because I'm not very social. Okay. I'm very quiet. But also because of, you know, the pain of losing my dad. Yeah. I built defenses all over myself that no one could just penetrate in. Yeah, so it was quite a hard bit of, you know, like now thinking of who is now going to take me, you know, because even this guy we met in Makerere, and then I was studying, but now I was out of school, and because nava musomero nga sente tezirabika, because all along I had been working while paying for myself at campus, sente nezigana emirimu negisoka nejesiba nensoka nenkivaako.
Kati waina checklist nti kati mkama njagala omusajja bwati ne bwati mwaka gugwerako nga omumpadde.
Checklist gye nali nina okusingira ddala yali esookera ddala nti alina okubeera nga musajja wa Katonda. Kyekyasookera ddala. Ebirala byonna nali mwana muto really. I was so naive. I did not really know exactly, you know, what I really wanted. But all I knew is that if I could get a man who loves God and he can and who loves me, but also can, you know, fuel what I'm called to do here on earth by God, that's all I wanted.
Awali omaze okutegeera ky'owayitibwa okukola?
Nali sinaba naye okuzaayo kemabegako about, you know, 2 years prior to that. I had 2 strange dreams. Nalwala nnyo obulwadde. Nentukuwa nefuna ekirooto nga ndaba omwoyo gwange gufuluma from my body and it's going, and then I kept looking back. I'm like, but wait a minute, is that my body? Then someone came and woke me up. Nesoka nentya engamba, I think I'm not going to sleep again, nkirabika nyinza okufa. But then later in the night I was, you know, angry with my mom for so many things that had transpired between us. But then I was living with my grandmother. Right in the night, as I'm crying out my pain, I'm like, God, I'm even tired. I'm tired of this world. Vichi, take my life. I'm done. Like, why am I here? My mom doesn't, you know, I thought my mom doesn't love me. I don't see people loving me. Of course, I had a family, but as a teenager, you do not know what's going on in your life. You just see the things that are there and you demand that, no, this is what I want, you know? So I told God I wanted to die. I was tired of the pain, and then in the night I dream moving on the clouds with a lady putting on something as big as this. She had really, you know, like elegantly dressed, very long hair, and then we were walking, and then I'm like, oh, where am I? She's like, oh, you're with me now. And then we're moving towards a very huge gate. So she's like, she had something she was holding, like a paper. Nemubuza chicheto. So she said, this is a list of things that you have done on earth. And it had my name. Those things were like 3 things. Because by then I was like in the choir. I used to mop the church, like on a Sunday. And every other time when we used to go for prayers. So nze nali ndowooza nkoze bingi. Looking at my list, akakolako ebintu bisatu byokka. And then we are moving so fast. And then I'm like, no, first wait. You mean I've done only 3 things? She's like, yes. And then I'm like, no.
I need to go back.
I need to go back. How am I going to stand in the presence of my Creator and say that this is what I have done? And then she's like, but you've told us you wanted to die. You're tired. You've been crying.
Okay.
We have watched you cry and cry and cry. Like you're always crying. We are tired of seeing you cry. Let us take you. So I said no. So I started seeing in a flash of a second. I started seeing people organize my burial. And then I started seeing people down, you know, like during that time, there's a widow I used to take care of. I would, you know, once in a while buy her food, pay for one of the orphans, the school fees. So I saw all of them that they had no one to help them. Then I'm like, I pleaded. I'm like, let me go back, please. This time I'm going to be better. I'm not going to complain anymore. Let me go back and then be able to serve my God so that I come back with a full accountability. I really had to beg her until she said yes. Now that was almost before we reached the gate, before the gate could open. And the Lord had mercy on me. She was able to say yes. Immediately she said yes, I saw words being written on space and I started speaking them. Those words are not English. It's now that I am grown and I'm an adult that I realize it's actually the Hebrew language. Because I can recognize the letters. And then I spoke. As I spoke, I come back to my body, and my body is super cold.
What?
And my bed sheets had all become so wet, and I was feeling like I am freezing, but like I was not sick. I was feeling so fine. And yet when nali neebakidde nali ndi mulwadde nnyo. I was feeling super fine. I even got up, I removed my bed sheets from the bed, I laid new bed sheets. I went to the shower, I showered, I put breakfast because that was towards the morning. And then my grandmother came and looked at me. She could not believe because bebaka bonna beeraliikiridde nti ndi mulwadde ate nga sina kye nali nsobola kwekolera because from the hospital they even had to carry me. So when I came back into my body, I was speaking in tongues. And then from then I said, I am not going to cry anymore. Every pain I'm going to go through, I'm going to ask God, what am I going to be learning out of this?
Wow.
Yes.
So you meet this man, no, before you meet him, you're praying to God to give you this person before the end of the year. Did he come through?
Yes, it did. Around about March, I met someone on Facebook, but then Facebook had just come. I'm so good with, you know, talking to people on Facebook than in normal life. Those who know me can tell that I am not very, very social, but when it comes to online, I am very good at that. So I met someone on Facebook and through another person. And then that lady, she was a white lady. Then she also, when she introduced the guy to me, I found out he also knew my pastor back home in my local church.
Was he a white?
No, he was
African?
African, Muganda man. Yes. So we met on Facebook. We started to talk back and forth. He's very chatty and a lot of, you know, words. So, he came down. He was living in Gulu, but he came down to Kampala, I think after 2 months, to meet me. So we started to go out, you know, bit by bit. And then before I know it, the guy is like, by the way, I'm serious, I want to marry you.
Did you like him?
At first I didn't.
By the time you accept going out with him?
I didn't. Like there was no connection, and I felt like my heart was still the other side. But at the same time, I was like, I needed to let go of that thing, you know, and I needed the grace to push on to something new. I needed to open up my heart, open up my mind to something new. When he told me he really liked me in just a few months, like he was so serious, you know, the things were fast. And you know, these like days where you know that men are not very serious. No one will walk up to you and say, okay, I want to marry you, you know. When you get something like that, you're like, wow, okay, you know, you get excited. And I first rejected what he was talking about. I even told him, you know what, this is not going to work. And then he cried so much. Thank you. And you as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So kakati tubadde ku mbozi yaffe eya omusajja Katonda gwaleese wamusaba nno n'ogamba omwaka teguggwako nga tebampasizza kati mukama omusajja amuleese atakutwala speed ayagala kuwasa ate otidde.
Well, actually, sisobola kugamba nti mukama gwe yali aleese because yes we sometimes we pray but now having gone deeper in the Lord, I realized that there are so many things that could have happened different if I had really learned how to hear more from God, you know, things like that. So anyhow, I cannot really say nti Katonda yali amulese, and at the same time I can't say nti Satani yali amulese, but maybe at the end of the program we can all judge and say, okay, this was it. Okay. So he came, and when I first refused him, he said, he cried, so I told him, okay. When I saw the faces of the kids in Gulu, how impoverished they were, they looked so sad. Bali mumbeera mbi. So my heart was really touched, and I'm like, these are children I can actually love and give back. Having been a child out of compassion, this is how I wanted to give back to the community. And so for me that made sense to me. Also the fact that he was always around. He was an aggressive man when it came to work and stuff like that. I mean, who wouldn't want a woman who is a man who is hardworking, you know? And supportive. Yes. So that's how we began. And then I found out he was a friend to my pastor back at home in my local church. So I was like, he's accountable. Yeah. To me, that was it. But the things were like so rushy to the point that I think people recognized it, but no one really came to tell me that, you know what, Salah, speed, you know? Because no one really asked me, how long have you seen this man? You know, how long have you even known him? How long have you dated him? Because it was just a rushed thing. By August, he was already proposing, you know? When did you meet? We met around April. And by August he's proposing. I met his family, because first time we actually met, he took me to his family, to his grandmother and his mom and his brothers. So we just met, talked, and that was it. You know, his story was a little, you know, similar to how he said he grew up, because he said he grew up with his grandmother, and so I had also grown up with my grandmother partly. Katinganda batukwatagana somewhere, somehow. Nakukuba empeta. Empeta yaliyo bate yaliye. He comes, proposes to me. It was really a surprise, and I was, you know, extremely happy. And then I go tell my mom that, okay, now it's time to get kugula gomesi. Okay. Yes. Then she was like, eh? Yeah, I said, yes, there is someone, he has proposed, we need to buy gomeses. So as a mother, she was, you know, proud that, first of all, being her only girl, you know, I'm not going to just run off and there was a wedding on the way. It was an exciting time. We did a kuchala. But one of the things that I remember my grandmother speaking, she's late now. Because we were very close, she told me, musajja oyo no musobola. Nemugamba jjajja ate lwaki oyogedde bwotyo? Nagamba omusajja, I don't know the Luganda word, but I can't remember very well, but the English word is obsessive. Alina ebbuba, yeah. Musajja alabika alina ebbuba lingi. Onoomusobola. So I'm like, musajja kigo osobola ofuna nga akwagala nnyo nabeera nga talina bbuba. I was supposed to listen and contemplate on her words, but I was young and naive. And so I was like, no, tujja kubeera bulungi, you know, abasumba bange abamanyi, naye bamumanyi, biki. Cut in my heart, I was like, he's going to be accountable. If anything fails, because you never know, you know, we can always go to the pastors and they help us. And that's what happened. So we got married that very year, 2010. The wedding was in December. And life began for us. That was before the end of the year. Ogambye omusajja yali akola ggulu. He had an NGO. He had started an NGO. Yali Muganda, but he had like sold himself to the area, because when you're doing ministry, you don't just go back and forth. You have to, you know, be with the people, experience life there. He was more like a missionary there.
ng'otandika bufumbo.
Ntandika okufumba. And then we get our firstborn child. Things were really okay, and I remember I was telling someone about my wedding story that for us we didn't even like perform a huge wedding because I am a very simple person and I don't like debt. So what we did is we did just a celebration at church on a Sunday service. And then netukola emmere, like we did food, lunch, brought our cake at church there. We cut the cake, did a mobile studio at church there, took our pictures. By 3, the wedding was done.
Wanji, who suggested that?
So at first I didn't have that because, you know, like as a woman, you're like having this princess thing. Oh, I want to get married.
Change, have 3 dresses.
We thought about it and we were like, okuva mumbageno n'amabanja. After the wedding, you're the two, just the two of you. It's not going to happen. So we had to adjust, and it took a lot of adjustment from my own family. My mom, of course, wasn't happy about it, but I told her, you know what, this is the best we can do. If I can do this, nestava kulujanga kaundo kakubye dinisa, let's go. Even the honeymoon, he had money for it. I told him we are not going to do a honeymoon. He said, why? I told him, well, I can't go to Zadomana Soka. We were, you know, things were okay the first year of marriage. Of course, as a young person, Oli Alimokulu, he's like 11 years older than me. Waliwo ebintu byayogeranga nduzanga nange sibitegeera naye nga njagala okugezaako okulabanga mutegeera. I was very young and we did not do as much counseling in the church because I think I remember we did once or twice, and then the rest of the days everyone was almost not available, you know, the pastor, this and that. So somehow things just happened so fast. So after I give birth, we start to create a home and then create a farm. We established things day by day. But round about, I think when she was about between 6 and 9 months, things started changing. And I didn't know how we had come to that. And when I say things changing, I mean things like him coming back home and banging doors. Him coming back and he's shouting. And I'm like, I was young. I didn't even know what was going on, you know. All I knew is that I had to stay home. Most of my work was on the laptop. I am a computer geek. I can do for you anything on the computer. So I would stay at home and I would work. Yes. Besides the computer work, I would, you know, take care of the baby, take care of the home. The only thing that I remember I didn't do was to wash clothes. And that's because I have an issue with it. But the rest of the things I would do. Now, the fights began, and I cannot really put my finger at it that this is what I had really caused. Except when, you know, you hear stories be like, omukyala wobeera ewaka, you're bored. Oba toyina nnyo byakola kati bw'akomawo oyagala kwogera nnyo omugambe kino ate nawe oba oyagala akugambe. And then for him, I think I failed to understand him a little because maybe he was busy, maybe he didn't want to talk much, or he wanted sometimes to talk much and I was not just available. So things started happening and he would bang doors in the middle of the night and I did not understand. Now, before I even get into this story, because it's a very sensitive story, as much as it is sensitive, I want everyone out there, our beautiful viewers, to understand that I don't say this at all to tarnish his name. Most of social media knows me. But I share this story with you today because it's been a life-changing testimony for many people, for me myself. I want to also make sure that I don't point fingers at him. It could have been my mistake, it could have been his, but I want everyone out there to know that I do not do this to tarnish his name. I'm sharing a testimony of how far God has brought me and why I do what I do today. And so that being said, things started happening gradually. She made 1 year, and so he would now, I think he liked, you know, getting my attention. And now me, there's that mode I get into where you show me all these things and I get tired and I'm like, okay, let me just look on, you know. Kati bagande bagamba nti omwami tomuddamu bw'ayogera nga bwe mba simuzeemu kimuyombya, bwe nzira bwe muddamu ne kimunyiiza kati ne binsobera. Of course anyone would ask, tewali toyogera na basenga, didn't you talk to people? One time he got angry and packed his suitcase n'agamba agenda kunoba.
Wanji?
Yes.
Agenda kukola ki? Kunoba.
He packed his suitcase.
Oh my goodness.
N'apackinga n'ebitonotono eby'omwana. By then she was about a year. He left with her. I was so shocked. I panicked.
Yapackinga woli waka?
Nga wendi. Because me, in all that, we can fight. We can do anything. I will not leave the marital bed. I will not go sleep on the couch because that is my bed. Okay? So we can fight and then maybe later we can get over things, but I'm not going to leave that bed. So maybe because of, you know, me not leaving, he decided to leave. And the first time it really shocked me. I got so worried. Nelalikirira nnyo. Kati nenjogerako with one of his sisters nemungaba naye ekintu kino nga kiyitiridde nze sikitegeera aparkinga n'atwala omwana. I don't even know where they go sometimes. Kati muganda we n'aŋŋamba nti nyaseka n'oseka nagamba gwe weerire embereyo n'okwebaka weebake naffe kitaffe yanobanga ate ng'abisibira mu kinaabiro, you know, like those old days, there's a kanabiro like behind the home and stuff. And I'm like, okay.
Kati bwe yanobanga n'amala ebbanga ki?
He would spend a night away and then come back in the morning.
Otyo?
Walonga ne weyangambanga nze ngenze Kampala mwanange mututte biki. And then I'm thinking about the journey from Gulu to Kampala. I'm like, God, what is this? I got so worried. And then at some point when she told me that her dad used to do it, I was like, okay, let's do it.
Oh my goodness.
So, but I think in his own mind, he wanted to get my attention. However, every time he would just want to get my attention and we would not settle fights because I was not supposed to be heard. I'm supposed to hear.
Oba yali ayagala omugambe pepi togenda.
Banaye nga neegayiriranga ebiseera ebisinga ne mugamba biti like because I was young nga obeerawo ne weegayirira omuntu nga nawe weebuuza oba omukoze eki tomanyi okitegeera. Naye later I find out that the times when he used to come and bang the doors, he had taken alcohol. God. And when I found out, it broke my heart. And then I'm like, I've been dealing with an addiction and I don't even know. Because at my house, we were raised in a very humble, you know, background. My mom being a single mom and a widow, she used to work every day, almost day and night, to make sure she brings food on the table. So we did not know anything that had to do with alcohol. Tetwalaba ku mwenge, tetwagunyirizaako. I did not even know the smell of alcohol. Nti omuntu ne waba ampiseeko nga sisobola kutegeera. Okitegeera. So here I was dealing with this. And I think also, thinking back, I did not dig deep in his past to know the things he had been struggling with. I did not know any of the things that had transpired in his past. I just jumped into the relationship, more so the marriage. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so we move on. And I'm like, okay, now I'm dealing with an addiction. I don't even know how to deal with it. Being a Christian, I had not been taught or discipled in any way that this is how you deal with this. Kubanga katiesa weno, if I found someone with an addiction, not that I would date them, but I would know how to handle it prayerfully.
Oh yeah.
But by then, I did not know. Although I used to say my simple prayers and say, God, please remove this, please remove this, you know. We continued to work in the community, and God had really blessed us with a lot of, you know, wealth, I would say. You know, like land, and the organization was growing. But later, things became worse when I became pregnant with my second baby. Now, with my first baby, there was a prolonged period because I was on family planning. It caused me not to have another child. I almost even thought I was barren.
How many years did it take you to have another child?
So, wow, I need to count. About 4 or 5. Yeah, because my oldest is 12 now, and the other one is 8. Yeah, about 4. So, but I think the delay also was probably God's way of saying, Chitwale Paula. But then me in my mind as pressing on to be like, God, please bring this child. Maybe a second child will help restore this marriage, because I saw it going on the rocks. And then in that moment, I left. I saw how, you know, we were struggling financially. I told him, you know what, let me create a business. I can do a business, and then we can have a daily income to help us as a family as we serve in the community, because donor money doesn't come all the time. Of course, we struggled with that decision, and I am strong-headed. So I go in and look for places, you know, I get my savings on my account. And the first trip we made to the US, I bought those $1 things and brought them back home. So I started selling in my friends. And the money I would get, I would compile it to be able to make sure that I am going to create a shop. So later, I really pressed on, and he found himself in a position where he could not buy fuel for his car when he had to travel to Kampala, and I'm the one now who gives him the money. So he's like, okay, this thing is going to work. So he's like, I'm going to work with some people I know, we shall find a shop. I'm like, okay. So he comes back from Kampala, looks for a shop, helps me, we get a space, he gives me the money to pay the rent. And then after about 3 months, he would go work in the farm back and forth. He would never really come to the shop to find out what's going on. But then, with the very first day he comes, he starts to check my books of accounts. Then he starts to see, she's making money. Yeah?
Oh my God. You know, between you and I, we know that the time is not going to allow us to tell this whole story. And I do not want, sagala nkupakuse, kubanga njagala abantu bayigire mu story yo. Your story is very long, but very educative. So njagala omulabi waffe akkiriziganye nange naawe tingenda kuba nkukomyawo, tumaleyo story yaffe. Tugenda kutandikira wano wennyini we tukomye olunaku olwaleero, otubuulire biki ebyabeerawo mu bufumbo obwo, biki ebyaddirira, byoli mu kukola kaakati, otubuulire obulamu engeri gye bwatambula. Kubanga ekyamazima story yo engeri gyoyogeddemu, engeri gye wasalawo okufumbirwa omusajja. There are so many women or girls that have made such mistakes.
Yes.
Naye ebintu ebimu ngamba nnyo nga bw'ogambye nti ebintu ebimu Katonda akkiriza ne tubiyitamu because of your calling.
Yes.
Katonda akukkiriza ebintu ebimu n'obiyitamu kubanga alina kyakuyitidde okukola, osobole okuba nga abantu b'oyogera nabo otegeera ky'oba. You know, it's better to tell a story, something that you've been through.
Yeah.
Bw'oyogera n'omuntu nga afiiriddwe omwami we, nga wafiirwako omwami, omuntu ono ayangu okukkiririzaamu than someone else who has not been in that place to tell her, you know, okumugumya ayinza obutakitwala kubanga alina that feeling, she doesn't know how it feels. But because you know how it feels, you have that experience. When you tell someone, do you know what? Or when someone comes to you nagamba nja nina omusajja bwe bitunamugamba muleke, because they have heard your story, ajagamba let me listen to Zani.
Yeah.
So njagala emboozi yo ginyumye bulungi nga sikupakusa, eggweyo bulungi, omwana omuwala ali eyo naawe omukyala oyige otegeere ensobi naddala abakyalo b'abawala ze tukola nga tetunaba kugenda mu bufumbo. Tell me, what is your favorite scripture?
My favorite scripture is Psalm 23.
Psalm 23.
I learned it the day I got born again when I was 10 years.
Okay.
Yes.
What is your favorite song?
Wow. I have so many worship songs I love.
Any song of your choice.
Wow, it's called Lion.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember the
artist.
The artist.
My producer will do a good job.
It's
He will
called
look
Lion.
for the song. It's a worship song.
Yes.
Okay. So allow me to bring you back in studio.
Okay.
Like I said when I was beginning, that devil comes in like a flood, but our God.
Yes. I mean, my ministry being called the Warrior Woman, I do a lot of spiritual warfare.
Yes.
So, but also just the mantle on my life, or what the Lord has put in me, has been resisted so many times. Somehow I was not surprised that whatever happened before the show began. So, but the Bible says all things work together for good.
Exactly.
Yes.
We thank God, and I'm grateful that we are going to have you again on this show. Ntera kugamba singa TV yali eyitamu amayinja. Singa amayinja bagankuba. There are some guests you really bring and people are like, but why? We need her back. We need him back. Why? We needed to hear this. Why don't you bring them back? So yesterday olwakadde emboozi twajogeddeko katono. Naye abataakulabye jjo oba bakuwulidde nga tusiibula. Sookoddemu babuuzeeko babulira amannya go and what you do.
Wow, I am so grateful to be here again. I just thank God so much for the privilege of coming here again and being able to share this moment with him and with everyone out there. I am so excited. My name is Zani Favor. Many call me Warrior Woman. And I am a mother of 3, a single mom. But yeah, we praise the Lord for that. I'm also the CEO of the Warrior Woman Ministry, the oversight. And we have a branch here. We are putting up a branch in Michigan and also Tennessee. And a lot more branches are coming up in South Africa and Malawi. I'm grateful for the Lord for all those opportunities out there. I don't know what else to say about myself. I am a prayer warrior, 201. I love prayer. I love people. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's good enough. Mpola. So, njagala otuzeeyo emabega katono, sijja kuzzaayo ku ntandikwa. Naye twagala tutegeerere wano w'omiitingira boyfriend ku social media.
Eyafuuka
husband. People would want to know again, how did you meet this boyfriend who becomes a husband?
Oh, wow.
How long did the dating process take? The courtship process? Manye ebintu ebyo bibiri nabyo abantu babimixing. Courtship, dating, abantu tebamanyi difference. So how long did this whole process take before you get into marriage? And then we can come back into marriage.
Okay, so I met this gentleman on social media through another friend who was an older woman on Facebook. We had been friends for quite a while. Usually with my kind of way, I usually post a lot of encouraging things. So it draws people to me. And that's how I think I met this lady. And then after we met, she told me she had a son. She called a son in Africa. I thought he was like a white person. But to find out he was a black guy. And so she told me, no, you friend him, you know, stuff like that. You guys would become friends because you've also become my daughter and stuff like that. So we went ahead and I went ahead and sent the friend request. And so we became friends, started talking back and forth. Like I said, on social media, I'm very good at texting back and forth. But when it comes to like the real-time thing, that's a whole different thing altogether. Yeah, so I just, by that time, we were talking back and forth. And then I think it took about 1 or 2 months. And then he came down to Kampala because he was living in Gulu. And then he came down to meet me. So when he met me, of course, the very first time I saw him, I can't say I was like shocked about his size, because when you're talking to someone on social media, you don't know how they look physically.
Yes.
So looking at him for the first time, I'm like, he was really tall and really slim. But I'm like, well, we'll see what happens, you know. So we, worked together for quite a bit. And I think that very first time I met him, that is the very first time he still took me to his parents' place. I met his grandmother. Like, things were happening so fast. And then in his heart, I think he was really, really sure of his plan. But I did not know. I was young. I was just, let's do this. Or like by then I didn't even know that he wanted to have me as his woman. But because of the talking back and forth, we, discussed a lot of things on the way. And then we had one mission to do with him. And I remember we went up to Gulu. And like I said, because he was talking to me back and forth and telling me he was interested in me, I was like, what would I be able to do with this man if I, joined him, if I had to get married to him? So when we went for that mission, that's when I saw the faces of these kids. I looked at them and I was, touched. I love children. My own children can tell. I mean, once I love someone, I am like a lioness. You don't touch what I love. So I looked at the faces of these children and I adored them. And I said, this is what I can do as I am married. Because at the end of it all I wanted was one thing, that even when I get married to this man, I wanted to continue doing my purpose for God. Because that was the number one thing. So we moved anyway. And I think after like 4 months of just looking at each other, we didn't really set date. Because dating, I think someone needs to take you out for a meal, you talk and get to know each other. We did most of that on social media, And then the few times he would travel to Kampala, that's when we would go see his parents, spend a little time together, and that was that. And then by I think he proposed in July. So we met around May, April. And then he proposed in July. August, we did Kuchala. That was how fast it was. Yeah. And then Kuchala, then introduction in November, then wedding in December.
And you go into marriage.
Then I went into marriage.
And you are telling us the main reason why you wanted to marry was because wali okulanga omwana omuwala and the only girl in the family, having lost your father at a very young age, you thought maybe you needed someone like a gentleman who can love you like a dad, somewhere you can belong.
Yes, I was looking for love, that's for sure, because I had lost my dad at a very, very tender age. I lost my dad at 7 years, and I was so empty. And then having been into a relationship with this guy who had a child, who loved me so much that we had created a relationship with, it hurt me to have left that behind. And so I wanted more than just what I could, see. So I wanted a family to love and, also a man to love me back, especially in the mature way, because I had not seen that anywhere, especially because of the relationship with my dad that had gone away. And so because of that, I was looking for a sense of belonging. As young as I was, I never really understood that you cannot look for a sense of belonging in marriage, especially when it is not time. And this morning as I was driving and coming here, I got a revelation, and God was like, you see, I asked for marriage that same year. And God gave it. He allowed it. Not because it was the right time, but because me, in my authority, even as young as I was, I declared it. I wanted it. Come rain, come sunshine. I put ultimatums on it. And this is what happens to all of us, that we put ultimatums on God when we want something so bad that we don't even understand whether we are ready for it or not.
Oba kyaffe oba si kyaffe gongamba nti nze mukama kino nze njagala kugenda mu America mukama nze.
Whether I am ready or not, and that's how we go. abamu ba travelinga, and they go there and they start going through a lot of hassle. Yet, if you could just be patient, when the right time is there, when the right time has come, you don't have to struggle about anything. Yes.
Okay. So you are taking us through your marriage trials.
Yes.
And struggles. Meanwhile, ng'otugambye twakomye wali omusajja atandise okukyuka asparking ebintu n'anoba naye basajja mmwe.
Now again, kino njagala nkiiseewo ab'emikwana batulaba, friends and family out there, and I know my daughter is also watching. I don't say any of these things to okumusiga enziro or to, you know, I don't know the English word, but I don't say these things so that I can trash him. I only share these things because I realized, and I have grown to a place of maturity where I understand that my testimony will change many lives out there. It's a training ground for people. It's been a teaching ground for people. Many people have received Christ through my testimony. And so I don't say it so that you can see him as a bad person. I have personally forgiven him, and I hope that you can forgive him as after you hear these things, because that is what the Bible teaches: forgiveness and mercy.
Amen.
Now, coming back to my story, yesterday I ended where I had created a business, and he had come and he had seen how much I was making. And the truth is, he was surprised, because in as small as it was a small shop, the money was coming. And so somehow there's a way God gave me a gift where whatever I touch, it is blessed. And I will do that to the best of my ability. And so I worked in this small shop, and it started to grow and grow. Now, the moment he finds out about the money, the story became so different. Every attitude started coming out. He's like, now I'm the boss of the shop. And I'm like, wait a minute. You have a farm to take care of, because we had a farm, we had an organization, like there were so many things to run. And then he comes in my shop and he's like, now I'm going to be your boss because you don't know how to handle money and stuff like that.
But did you know how to handle money?
I did, because how could I have grown it for 3 months and you see money coming in, income, you know, and there was no loss. I was handling loans by then, as young as I was. I mean, those who did not yet hear, I got married at 21. I handled the business. If it was crashing down, then I would say, yeah, maybe I could not handle, but I handled it well. And the suppliers knew me, like we coordinated everything. So he comes in and he's like, I'm going to be your boss. And you know, I'll say this, one of those things that we do, we watch a lot of movies and we kind of start to be practical about those things. So when he started to say that I'm going to be your boss and stuff, I'm like, you know what, I want a divorce.
You saying?
Yes. I said it not because I really wanted it. I didn't even understand it. But I said it because I felt like it would kind of bring him back to his senses, not to fight for my shop. And yes, people will say that business is not for a woman, especially if you've created it in a marriage. And I was not there to take that business to myself, because even the money I was making, I would once in a while chip in at home, because we were not having any other income coming in, you know. So I mentioned this particular word to kind of get his attention. And then that caused a big, big spark. Now, also my, you know, like my background for having said this was like, you know what, I have been through enough already. Why are you trying to take away the only small thing that I'm trying to develop, you know? And that caused a lot of fights. That shop caused too many fights, overboard. And then I was like, you know what? For the sake of the fight to end, I'm like, fine, take the shop. Be the boss. Atulengamu, I'm managing finances, changamba chenkola nze sikola chintu chonna, I don't decide on my own. Meanwhile, we had an NGO to run. He had a farm to run. He neglected the farm for a bit while being in the shop. And when I surrendered at some point and let him handle things, we started getting disagreements over prices, because some things he was overpricing them, and I felt like, no, this is not supposed. I mean, he was looking at the profit margins and stuff, and I'm like, but my clients, this is how I've been handling them, because this thing was like personal to me, you know. And so the invasion did not cause a very, very good thing between us. There was a fight, a real serious fight when it came to things of money. Now, this is something that we do not understand even in marriages. I don't want to go so much deep in that, but I'm sharing my story so that we can all learn from it. Once people come together, you've got to also talk about money things, you know, before things get out of hand. Because by then, I did not know that I had to be like, you know, like transparent about everything. But also, I had no problem being transparent about everything for as long as he trusted me, you know. So we fought about money. And then I remember one of the fights that transpired was about a hanky. So the hanky, usually I would sell the hanky at 2,000. And then for him, he comes and puts a new price of 2,500. And then I'm not aware, because I think the previous day I had been home handling kids' things. And I was pregnant.
Akatambala kubanga ayongeddemu 5.
Yes, kati mpozi okubazayoko emabega nabadde John ayogedde about how I conceived my second baby. Na twalwawoko because of family planning, and then I pressed God. I'm like, God, I want this second child. Maybe it will help, you know, sparkle up things in my marriage, because I felt like I was losing it. And so I got the second baby. Now, that pregnancy did not really treat me that well, those who have, you know, known about those things. But around about that time when I was selling the hanky, I went and sold it 2,000. And then he comes and he's like, who sold this thing 2,000? Because we write it in the book, we have records. And I'm like, I sold it 2K because that is the price I set. In my mind, this is what I think. And he's like, no, I changed it. I'm like, why? But the prices have not gone up, you know. Kati ndoza nawulira banga muyisizaamu amaaso, because I was challenging him, you know. Kati then I drove back home, because he was really fighting. Like he would shout on top of his voice. And so I'm not comfortable with that. So I drive back home, especially because I had to handle the children. Then he comes, and he was still angry. Yeah. So he comes at home, and there are all these kids who are having kids for holiday and stuff like that. And then I realized he's angry, but I didn't take it like personal. I'm like, maybe he will calm down. So he's like, can we talk? I'm like, okay. I'm like, do you want to talk in the bedroom? And he's like, no, let's go to the car. About maybe 10 minutes drive. Okay. Yeah. So we went to the car. It was a super custom. And then he starts to yell at me. And then he was the kind of person who would tell you things you did 2 years ago, like in an argument. He would bring it all back. He even reminded me of that time we were dating or courting, when I told him my salary was about 200, and then he realized through reading my email that it was 250. And I'm like, there was an increment at some point, but which I didn't even explain. And then he's like, you see, you lied to me, now you're here lying to me. He would remind you of every single bit of things that you did that you had probably even apologized for. Then he would bring it back in your conversation. So things started building. I'm like, from a simple thing as a hanky, this thing has grown. And I was like, what am I even doing? And now we are in the car, in the super custom, it's all locked. Remember, it's night. So someone calls from the shop, it was a supplier. And then this is the same supplier. He again asked me, did you contact the supplier? Did you give them money or stuff like that? If you didn't have the money, did you explain to them? I'm like, I called their phone, they were not picking. Now you see my phone, he is calling. Can I pick him and talk to him?
Ngolo sawa ziri mu meka?
Sawa zaali emu kitundu bbiri awo.
Ekitegeeza mwava mu nnyumba ekiro ne mugenda mu motoka?
Yes.
Okay.
So I asked him politely, but I think he was fired up. And at this point, even, and I can't keep giving the excuse that I am young or I was young. But the thing is, I could not understand certain things. Maybe at that point, I could have avoided what transpired in the moment by not picking the phone call.
Because watugambye yalina emyaka 10 n'emeka? Like he was
11 years older than me. You. So in that moment, I asked him politely, can I pick this call? I'm like, the guy is calling because you've been pressing me and asking me what have I done, or did I call him to follow up and stuff like that? Can I pick? And then he keeps quiet in the moment, and so I pick. I talk to the guy. I'm like, I'm going to send you money tomorrow, okay? Immediately I get off the phone. He's like, you see,
Mpisamu amaso.
You underlook me. You're so disrespectful. How can a man even call you at this time? And I'm like, I thought I asked you to pick, And then you're accusing me for not reaching out to the supplier. In the moment, things start to fire up. I'm like, recusing myself. I'm like, he's not listening. At that moment, I didn't even hear where the slap came from, my friend.
Oh my goodness. Allow me to go for a short break.
Okay.
And then we return with the whole story. My heart is beating.
If I'm still alive up to today, it is well with my soul.
Amen.
So, welcome back from the break. Again, I'm very, very excited that the Lord will give me this opportunity to share my testimony. And I'm excited for every person who is going to be encouraged through this. And I hope that you who is going through anything rough, just know that the Lord has got you. Don't give up yet. Yes, so I was explaining what transpired in the car. I don't know how it came.
Nsonyi okusala ekirimu. Nina abalabi bange abali ebugolobi mu katale. Nga bagamba naye bannange Winnie. Omugenyi ng'atuvuze nnyo mu kinyanyimbe. Mixingiramuko katonotono.
Ngenda kugezaako.
Oli maama gundi yali eri asobola otegeera emboozi eno bulungi.
Ngenda kugezaako. Bannange munansonyiwa. Kubanga oluzungu lwe lusinga okunyanguyira naye nekirala abakyala bembadde abalala abamu bali international abalinzi abali mu kulaba kati nja kugezaako okubalansinga nga Mukama ye mubezi wange. Mpozi twabadde tuli mu mmotoka bankubye oluyi simanyi gye lwava kati nno nze nga mmanyi byakusaaga manyi nga wogamba nti omuntu akubye esaawa eyo nobeera nga ategeera, like you come back to your senses, and then another one comes, then another one, then another one. Naddamu nakuba eno ng'akuba eno bwati ne bwati ne bwati. Tuli mu mmotoka ekiro. And he locked the car.
Oh my God.
And then as I tried to, scream and shout, ngezako kulekana, he's like, katolekana baje bankwate. Are you shouting so that people can gather around and so that you shame my name?
Really?
And then I'm like,
so he now wants to protect his name.
Yes. And then I'm like, but no, you like, he was really, really like hurting me. And then when he noticed I was making noise, he started to strangle me.
Because wali oli lubuto oba wali ozadde olwo?
Kanzijukireko katono. Kati awo nali nzadde. Let me first go back to something I missed. Omanye ebintu bino bingi. And I'm trying to kind of rush through the time. Mabegako, I was about, I think, 8 months pregnant. The issues had really grown so much that I went to the pastor personally, the pastor of Watoto Church. and I talked to him about the issues in my marriage. And I first actually talked to his wife. Because I know pastors' wives are prayerful. I needed someone to walk with me in this journey. And then I think as we talked, and she's like, you know what, I think let's involve my husband and let us pray about these things. I was a bit sensitive, but you know, I'm like, I need help. So we go to the pastor, we all talk, and then it's like, Begament, tugenda muyita, tusabe fenna. So nga bamuyita, and then he responds, he comes. By then twaite tunabatandika bino ebyokulwana physically. So he comes, he listens, they talk, and I'm thinking maybe something is going to happen, something is going to come out of this. So bwayogera naye nagezaako like nagezaako kwesaawa ey'okubalaga nti buli kimu kigenda kukyuka. And then what I remember is after that visit, we went back home. Nanyombesa nyo. He's like, you want to shame my name, you want to tarnish my name, you want to tell people, you go and pretend they are bichi. I'm like, but we need help. We are struggling in this marriage. We have failed to agree on so many things, you know. And then what happened, we went back home, we spoke this and that, and things were not really coming down. And I remember I was sitting on the dining. I had too much anger in myself at that point. I don't know, I cannot even say that it was an excuse of marriage or anything, or sorry, of pregnancy, but all I remember is that pregnancy did not really treat me well. I was super angry that when he talked against my mother because he shamed her name in my face. And then what even made it worse is when he talked about my dead father.
Oh my goodness.
And shaming his name. Now, I have just told you guys that when I love someone, I am like a lioness. Except now that I can control myself because of the grace that lives in me. But by then, even when I was, you know, born again, I did not know God like where I know Him now, that I can know how to control my emotions. And so in that moment in time when I had him shame my dad, who is long gone so many years ago, and then him speaking against my mother, I was so filled with anger. I also, I came and slapped him. And then he's like, oh, so you're slapping me? I'm like, I'm sorry. In that moment, I came back to my senses. I'm like, you know what? I am so sorry. But you're talking about my parents. In our conversations, tusobola okujamu abantu abakulu, tujemu abazadde, because I am not talking. Yes. Even if he was not resting, he does not have a right to talk about my parents, especially ngabavuma. Okay? But that cannot excuse my action either. Okay? And with all honesty, I have felt bad about it ever since. And maybe, just maybe, who knows, I told you guys yesterday, you will judge what, could have come out of this and who was wrong or who was right. Although we are not here to say who was wrong, I'm just narrating. Yes. I felt so bad of what I had done, and I was repentant, but he was fired up. And in that moment, remember I'm pregnant. So mukuyomba okunje nnyo nangamba omanye bisibudde ewammwe. Sigenda beera na mukazi ampisa mu maaso.
Atuuse n'okunkuba?
Atuuse n'okunkuba. Ne mugamba sijja. I said, I'm not going out of my marital home. We need to solve these things. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I know I had done something really big and bad. And then he's like, get out of my house, leave. I'm like, now, when I can be strong-headed, okay? But when someone presses on me harder, I'll be like, okay, fine. Let's do this. So I told him, okay, let me gather up my things, and I go. I had packed, you know, like a pregnant woman. I was almost 7 months, I think. I had packed already the small suitcase for the baby and my first girl also. Like I had packed things. But when he said you go, I had now to start packing my own things. And then I think in the evening, he realizes I've packed. I actually tell him, because you told me I have to pack, I'm not going to force this any longer. I can go. It's okay. And then, now he didn't want me to go. But now he did not know, I think, how to stop it. So I had gone out of that place and I had gone to the shop to check on things there. Remember, I was running it. No, he went home and unpacked everything. And he threw what really brought sorrow to my heart is him unpacking these things of the baby, the new things, and scattering them around the house. Everywhere he had thrown things, I got terrified. And I'm like, what is this?
Kati ng'obusungu abugyewa kuba yakugambye ogende sibako ebyo byogenda obisibyeko.
I don't really understand
kati kimuletera okumansa ebintu. Okay, even if you don't want someone to go, kati kale kwata suitcase ogizeeyo ogiteeka eri omugambe togenda. Kati yakugamba kigendererwa ki kye yaliko ekyokuba nti ebintu abiggyemu n'abikasukakasuka n'abimansa.
Ate twayogera nze nasanga abimansizza. Of course, in my mind I perceived that oba he doesn't want me to go. You know?
Then what did you do?
This was, I think I was about 23 years old.
Oh dear.
I could not think like an adult, you know? And in that moment, I try to gather up things. Then he comes back, na komao. Kati mukukomao, ansange waka. He comes and finds me home, and I'm trying to gather these things. And then we get into another fight. That was at the back of the house. About the same issue, like he can remind you of the hanky, he will remind you of the things you did long time ago, even things you had said sorry for. Because I didn't come to say that I was perfect. I am ironing out my wrongs, and the Lord has helped me go back and really realize where the problem came from. Okay, so he comes back and we get fired up again in this conversation. When I'm keeping quiet, he's like, why are you not talking? Explain this to me. And then as I'm explaining, you see you're defending yourself, you're shouting at me, you don't give me any kind of respect. Nengamba banange. Omuntu akoze atya.
Omuntu agoyingewa.
And so we were as in that back and forth, nankuba oluyi nengwa wansi. No, now this is the first time. Baziza okay mabega. Kati ankuba oluyi ngwa wansi. Ngandi lubuto. Myezi musanvu. Na ine empeta bbiri. Kati eya engagement when nagwa bwenti ne bawo mukono bwenti eya engagement aka stone ne kava, the stone fell out, like it literally almost broke on me, you know. And then in that moment, I realized that, okay, this is it. I have pressed so much, but I have my faults. He has his faults. This is not going to work, especially if I'm pregnant. Olubuto also lwamuchawa nnyo. Nze nganze nakiwulira nti olubuto olw'omwana lwamuchawa. So I went ahead to...
Ebyo ebintu bibaayo.
Nze munange simanyi nze nakiwulira nti essaawa oyo nalinga n'okumutunulako saagala mutunulako. But also part of it is because of the way he was treating me. Because when I went to the pastors, I was seeking for help. Bible yetugamba nti nno, bring people in, go to the church, go. I sought for help. It was all because I wanted something I wanted this marriage to work.
To work, yes.
Okay? And so, as I am down there, I get up and I'm like, okay, this is it. So in the moment, he sees me falling down, he walks away, he drives his car with my first daughter and goes away. Nenkubira mama wange simu in that moment, nenga mama simanyi kyakola. Musajja ankubye oluyi, kati simanyi kyakikolera, like, what do I do?
naye ng'olwo maama emabegako byonna byonna bye wali oyitamu walinga omunyumizaako
nedda
nga tombuulira
kino kyali kimpitiriddeko actually nze nali involvinga mama wange mu bintu byange except ate ye nga yamugamba muwala waali bw'ati buli saawa nga bwe tuyomba muwala waali bw'ati nga he wants her to come in our issues all the time. I had my reasons for not letting my mother get into our marriage because I wanted to do this one thing for crying out loud by myself. I know she had counsel. Manyi nti yali andibadde ambulira ebintu naye ebiseera ebisinga nze nali nayigirizibwa ne mu kkanisa ti don't involve parents yet.
Kubanga ate
oli maama wange
amukyawa
exactly kubanga kigenda yes and I want to also protect him but he would instead go to my mother, call her, talk to her. Okitegeera byonna nga binnuma naye nga nsirika and I would still tell him but anyway, so in that I call my mom and I tell him mama ebintu bintabuseeko tabangamba naye oba okumewoka ewaka ne mugamba actually kituufu kiri nti n'okungobangobye okitegeera ne mugamba nti ngenda kulaba engeri gye nsobola okukomawo naye ng'olwo sirinaamu pulaani egamba nti oba kyoba ki naye kati bwe naddayo nga ebintu byonna bisaasaanye n'omutima ne ntya I really got scared when I found the things all over scattered, especially the things of the baby. That hurt me so bad. For me, it was very significant that you can do anything else. You could have done anything else to my kid, to my clothes. Don't do anything to the unborn child's clothes. What kind of, like, what would you mean by that? You know? And so one of his brothers calls me and I tell him what was going on because he was helping around. And then I tell him, you know what? This is happening. I don't even know how to do this. So he's like, no. If you don't get out of that place, you will be killed. Find a way of getting out. I'm like, okay. I had to, I remember I went out to find a board at around 9 p.m. I went to one of my friends I had met at the hospital one time. I went and told her what had gone wrong. And I told her I don't have transport to go to my mother's place. If you could just help me, help me. That is in the night. She gave me some money she had, about 60,000. I came back home, Ngatana Komao. I repacked all the things of the baby. Nembiteka suitcase. Nenkwata suitcase.
Ko sawa
ziweze nnya. Nenkwata boda. I went all the way to the bus station and
Paka
took
Masaka.
the bus. No, si Masaka.
Tuwatugaye bakuzaala Masaka katale Maima. Oh, to Chigowa.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I didn't even go to Chigowa, but because now the distance between Gulu and Kampala, you move the whole night.
Oh, now you were coming from Gulu.
Yes, we were living in Gulu. We were living in Gulu. We were living and working in Gulu. I had sold my life out there.
So you traveled all the way?
Yes.
That night from Gulu?
Yes, in the night, in the cold.
Olono baby omuto omutaddewo.
Oyo yali yamutwala, like he packed her things and they moved out in the night. Nganyize. Okitegeera. And so we come, and then I go to the bus. I am as terrified as can be. I'm like, if he finds me here, I am dead. But I took the risk for my unborn baby. I moved in the night, in the cold, on the bus. In the morning, I show up at the bus station and I call my mom. By then I had not yet learned how to fight my own battles. I just needed a helping hand. She comes to the bus to pick me and she's looking at me, she's like, you know, like someone giving you that look of like, you are dead.
Mwana wange, ntaga mwana wange. Azadde bannange.
So mama wange antunuulira munnaku ennyingi nga nyamba nga tusitula ebintu ebikeesi byonna biki nga tugenda paka ku mulimu gwe ngamba naye mami omanyi I cannot come to your place. I need to go. I need to find a place to stay. Ngamba tekati lwaki ne mugamba bwe if I come to that place and stay with you he's going to come. And for now my number one target was to protect this unborn child. Somehow I had also perceived spiritually that there was an attack on that baby. And so I called some friends I had seen in Gulu. Nenkubira abamu be nali ntegedde Gulu ne mbagamba banaye munyambe, I need a place to stay. If you could just lend me about 200,000, 200 something, whatever. Ngine nonya akayumba. Naba wampereze emitwalo 25. She was so gracious. Nengina enansa na nonya akayumba. I went and looked for a very tiny room in one of the suburbs and resided there. Nengamba kambeeraawo until when I can have this child. Mu bintu byange ebitono ne mami yampaayo ko ebintu ebitono ne nteka mu nyumba mufaliso biki ne mbeeraawo for about 2 or 3 months until I had to give birth. But
ng'olyaki toyina mulimu?
I don't even know how I survived meanwhile. Sisobola kujjukira ngeri gye nasurvivingamu kubanga sijja kugamba nti nalina omulimu. But I think there are few friends who might have reached out by then. Just a few. Kubana sina banji. Now, coming back to that place, after I think about a month, of course he tried to call me, he tried to text me, he tried to email me, and I had blocked him. But I would see the emails coming in because you don't block emails. I read his emails. There are so many things he was talking about. First, I was hesitant because he was not apologetic about the things that had happened. But after some time, he started to be apologetic. And so I think after like 2 months, he became very apologetic. He's like, please, you can't do this, bichi bichi. Let's talk about these things. Can I come and see you where you want? I'm like, no. He cried. Of course, he cried. He begged. And I'm like, okay, fine. But you're not coming where I'm staying. Where I am safe. I had one thing. Now, when I put my mind on something, that is what I'm going to do. I said I am protecting my child. Even if I have to protect it from its father, it is well.
So were you not worried about the other kid?
I was, definitely. And God knows I love that kid so much. But I had to set some priorities straight. Because of this unborn, kuba singa onaatukako obuzibu nange ekizibu kiba kintuuseeko aba tufiirwa fembi. I knew that her father loved her and he would take care of her, you know, because she had kind of grown out. Ndowooza alina emyaka ng'etaano. So tutereeza, you know, we would now talk back and forth. Right before I give birth, I find a place in Ruwaga, I find a doctor to talk to and stuff like that because I had to keep on doing antenatal. Now, what happened was, I remember we had a small room, another place we were staying at his mother's place. So he proposed that instead of you staying there in that one room where I don't know where you're staying, I don't even know how safe you are, go to my mother's place. There was an independent house we had kind of put up like a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom home. So I'm like, okay, fine. I moved and he also came, he phoned me, we kind of settled things and me, I thought now things are settled. So I go to hospital, time reaches and I have to give birth. He was not around, he was in Gulu. I give birth, he came. Yeah, we went through life like that. He would travel back and forth because he had the shop to run now. He had all these other things to do. And then about when the child, I think, had made 3 months, now he's like, it is time for you to come back home. So I'm like, okay. In my mind, I'm like, I know he will, like, you know, you've heard of those stories where that someone says, if he beats you once, he's going to do it again. But I gave him the benefit of that doubt.
Oh yeah,
I did. I'm like, since the other time I was maybe younger, let me go back. Let me go back and fight again. I I can't just let these things, you know. Sisobola kuleka sitani kunninyirira bwatyo. I go back. Hey, he drove us. And then as he drives us, we go have a good time on the way. I'm seeing my first child. It's nice. And then I think it was about 2 or 3 days after we had, no, it was a week. I don't even remember what sparked that. I'm trying to remember. This that other story I was telling you. In the car. Custom. Yes. At that point I had given birth. I was just 3 months out of labor.
Wow.
I am cesarean section.
Oh my God.
So I'm taking you guys back to the point of him strangling me in the car, in the van. He strangles me. I fight for my breath. I'm like, God. I call Jesus. I call God. I call his name. He's like, you see, you're shouting. You want people to start gathering here. I literally start to fight for my life. And then we had an older lady who was working as our house help. I think she overheard the noises and the things that were coming from the car, although you could not hear it visibly because the car was locked, the windows were all up. So she comes and she knocks on the car. Window. She starts to call him, Tata Baby, the kera mukazi tomutta biki. Don't kill the woman. Then he's like, you see, of course, even this one to come. Banange, the man strangled me so much that I felt like I was losing my breath at some point, and I was not even speaking. I'm like, please, just leave me alone.
Oh my God. Allow me to go for another short break, but we are coming back with Zanny. You can see it is getting emotional. Olutalo lugwa lutya mu super custom ekiro ekyo.
Olutalo olwo omukyalo ono ng'ajja akunkona nga kubwa emmotoka. I don't want to even speak the name. She starts to call him, and that's when he kind of, I think, also comes back to his senses. And then he opens the car and they get out. So he opens the car. Because now she knew and she had known exactly what was going on in that moment in time, he said, I have fired you.
Oh, he fires the helper.
Amugoba. Muchire ekyo sawa ziri nnya kati. Ngamugamba ngina kuteka ku bus ode Kampala. Yes. That lady had been so good to us. She was an older lady, I remember. So ngamuteka mu motoka. Ngamuvuga ngamutwala. He takes her to the bus station. I don't know what transpired there. All I know is that when I got out of that car, I could not speak. I was affected in my neck. But you cannot feel the pain yet, except if it passes one day. And so I am so terrified. I am like shaking. I'm like, if this man finds me home again, he's gonna kill me this time. So I go grab my child, my baby. Ono mulala kubanga sinnawe muteeka. Yali alina banne abaze mu holiday. She had other kids around. And so they were together in the other bedroom. So I went and got the baby and I ran out of the house to my landlord's house. He was our neighbor, but like in another setting. Wabula simanyi sijja kulimba kubanga nziruka ekiro wa landlord nga manyi yayinza okubanga asobola okuntaasa. Nga ngina nga mugamba omwami ankubye naye kati naye yali awulidde ebiseera ebyo essaawa eyo kuba kinali mugamba tekyali kipya ng'olwedde yawulidde dda kuba omukyalo ono we yajja okuba emmotoka ye yajja n'avaayo najja kabalaza kati nkwata omwana nziruka gy'ali nga mugamba please help me, yali mu kyoli, please help me and I come and stay here for the night until I can go back tomorrow at my home. But if I stay there one more time, I don't know what's going to happen. And so he he was a bit hesitant because also his wife was not at home. But now, look at the risk that I am taking. I cannot stay home with my own husband, and now I'm asking for a place to stay to even a man I don't know.
And his wife is not
that much. His wife is not even at home. But what choice did I have? Okay, I get, so he's like, okay, fine. I go in, he takes me to the other kid's bedroom. I go and I put my baby down. Jukita, when you're breastfeeding, you have to have eaten. I am stressed. The baby kept crying the whole night because she was hungry. I did not have a bottle, nothing, no breast milk. And then he comes back, he does not find me at home. The landlord's house was just a few steps away from our home. I could know that he could hear the baby crying at some point. And I'm like, God, if you could just make this baby keep quiet. There are those moments where you're like, good, for this one time I'm doing a desperate cry. Help me, please. And then I had him walk back and forth from the compound of the landlord to our compound. I had him on the phone. And I remember him calling my mom. Because I had, yes, that night. Ngamubuza, mwana waliwa, bichi, where is she? And my mom told him one thing. She was now tired of this whole mess. Jukira twali tubiyise mudda. Agambye abazadde sikyaddamu mukuba. And so she's like, Bobo koye muwala wange. Nkwegayiridde mukomyewo. Nkwegayiridde tata mukomyewo. Anyone could ask, how did I hear this conversation? I was up. I could not sleep the whole night. This baby was making noise, and then I could hear him walk back and forth. When you see me and him, he's a giant. I am a, short and atibwa. In that sense, if I may say.
Atisa.
And so, that night was almost one of the longest nights for me. But the morning came. I think I slept about 30 minutes in between when the baby maybe like kind of slept off. Then she woke up again. Yes. In the morning, nganfuluma mu nyumba ya landlord. Namusanga taliiwo. Simanjo yali agenze. Kati nfuluma mu nyumba. Nkwata omwana. Ngina ne mulekera bana abali mu holiday. Nga nkwata boda nga ngina paka ku police. I went to the police station to report what is happening. Because at this point, I was more than frightened for my life. I went to the police station, they did their things, did a statement, they recommended me to the doctor, those people who check the wounds and everything, they mark everything on the paper. And then they're like, we are going to handle him. They're like, you go back home. I said, no. I have caused more trouble than even before. Where am I going? But now I had left my child at home.
You have to
both of them actually. I had to go back. So I go back. I think the police had called him by the phone. I don't know what transpired. But when I reached, he's like, hey, what did you think the police was going to do to me? So you actually had the audacity to go to the police? What did you think they were going to do? Aren't you back? I kept quiet.
So, but at this point, had you shared with his family, like what was happening? Did you have any family member from his side?
There were family members, but like I said, I tried to handle these things without letting family know. The only people I went to were the pastors. In fact, my mom got involved when things really got bad. Kubanga, I knew she would maybe yes. He would call her back and forth ngatamuwa mirembe. Okay? So I go back home, I'm quiet. I don't know, I'm like, okay, bwadamuna ankuba kati ngenda kufana. At least the police bategedde. Yes. So I sit, and then he's like, awadoloza togenda komawo. I'm like nangamba nti naye mama we yangambye nti bwe mba nkukoye nkuzeeyo. Ngamba nabiwulidde. I heard everything. So I told him.
Olwo teyategeera nti wasuze eri?
Yategeera, he knew. He even went and abused the landlord. Now, in that moment, I told him I'm not going anywhere. If you want, you kill me now. Sigenda kuddamu kunoba. Bobo yagala nzita. Because I have nowhere to go. Newe nagende wa mamange ogenda kunombayo. Luli nagezaako nengena I rented in a place. You still came for me. You convinced me to come back home and you told me there was going to be peace. But there's no peace in this home. So what do I do? What do you want me to do? My mom told me, get on the bus, come back. Maybe we need to solve something. I told her, no, let me stay. I stayed. The fights did not stop. The fights went on. No, actually that day, maybe to just end what transpired, is I told him I was not going anywhere. I was going to stay because I had kids to raise. If you wanted to do anything, let him do it. At this point, I think I was tired already. I had bruises meanwhile. I'm not able to show pictures this day, but I had bruises of the markings of the strangling on all over my face. Like I was almost disfigured. Now, after that, he kind of came around in the evening. He started to apologize. He said, you see, you're the one who brings this trouble on yourself. Gwatabonerera nkugamba gw'obindetera okukuba onyiiza n'onziramu nga saagala onziremu tompa kitiibwa n'ayogera ebintu bingi ne mugamba omanyi by the way nze mu buntu omuntu amanyi ndi mukambwe naye ate ndi muntu mukkakkamu ne mugamba nsonyiwa sigenda biddamu n'angamba ate toddamu okugamba abantu nti nkukuba mugamba sijja biddamu nsonyiwa naye njagala tubeere bulungi. In that moment, things kind of came around. And because now I had apologized, he was now back to no more. Love yaliwo. We took a trip somewhere, not very far. He's like, I need to take my family out. He took us out. We spent, I think, a night there, a night or two. And we really had a good time. Kati, in that moment, I was kind of working through forgiveness. Because you don't forgive in a split of a second. But I was trying to come around. I'm like, okay, I need to trust again. I need to work through these wounds. Remember, they're not just wounds physically. They are wounds in the heart. And by then, I didn't even know that I had trauma already. I had not healed from the trauma of him hitting me when I was pregnant. And then here I come back again in this marriage with those wounds, with the trauma. And then I am working through all these things, the emotions, the what. And I'm like, God, help me forgive. So, in 1 month, I realized I'm pregnant again.
Kagamba trip yakonyumira. Nogera ne mu bonus. Ogambye otya mama, olwo atawulidde ky'ogambye.
In that moment, just after 1 month, I realized I'm pregnant again. So I'm still breastfeeding.
Baby nga wa myezi emeka?
Awo yali awezezza emyezi ng'ena.
Gwe wa C-section?
Yes.
Kati n'okikola oti? Because as far as I know, they give you at least 2 years.
For what?
For total healing of your body and scar. You know, the outer and inner scars. That's how that's what doctors recommend.
Yes, that's what they recommend, but
it happened.
It happened in the heat of the second.
Oh, too?
And then I find out I have a baby and I'm like, I'm dead. Bwembanga mbadde nkyalinayo akalowoozo akagamba nti I will get out of this marriage. I am gone. Now I need to sit and stay put. And now in that moment, there was a friend of mine, she was a white lady. She had an abusive husband, but all of us didn't know. I remember I used to go check on her once in a while. She would even come home once in a while to check on me. I find out after 2 days that she had died. And I'm like, I saw this lady yesterday. So I go to the funeral service, and then to hear the stories, the people, like abantu b'omundu olumu baba bamanyi ng'omukyala ono bba we yali amubbi kwolwo bayomba n'amukuba. She was asthmatic, n'afuna asthmatic attack, she just passed out. Kati nga bagamba mbu bba we yakomawo the next day
nga yamukubye n'amulekaawo.
Kati baneiba baali bawulidde. So as I'm listening to this story, I'm like, wanankuba nange nempitirayo. We go to the funeral. There was this song that they played that still makes me cry up to today. He loves us, oh how he loves us. As they played it, tears was just rolling in my face. Not because, yes, I had lost my friend and I loved her dearly, but I'm like, the same thing is going to happen to me. What do I do? It broke my heart. And by the way, we were with my husband, seated in the church. We even went for burial deep down there in Acholi. My goodness, I was so broken. And at this point, I did not know. Now, remember, I am fearful. At the same time, I'm pregnant.
Had you told him already that you're pregnant?
Yes, I told him.
What was his response?
Like, things were normal.
Naye kati wamugambanga nti ndi lubuto ng'asanyuka, like oba ne by'abaana teyabiriiko nga ye tabyagala, alaba ggwe azaalazaala.
Sagala Balimba, I do not remember his reaction when it came to that baby, because we would have to go through so many fights. I cannot put my memory to it yet. And please forgive me if I cannot remember some things. My memory was affected because of the trauma I went through. But at least most of the things I'm sharing, I can clearly remember. Now, in that moment, I set myself to pray for my marriage. I said I'm going to do anything in this world to make sure my marriage stays. I cannot have 3 children and leave the man because he's beating me. And of course, you hear stories like Guma Berayo. You stay there. It is a covenant relationship. You were married in church. Stay. You cannot go.
Sajja kukyuka tumusabire.
Nensaba. Baganda bange nasaba. I would go for overnights. He never liked it. But I would go. Ngambo bankuba nkube kasita nkuba kubya Kristo. Nengenda nga nensaba. Nenzukanga kumwenda nensaba bannange nasaba. Nga batugamba mukwateko ku mutwe ogwo omusabire nensaba. Kakati, in that time, I remember that the kids start to grow. And we get a brand new car where at least I knew I could not share the car with him because we would share it most of the time. We had moved to the village actually by then. I'm kind of trying to remember everything. So we had moved to the village. I had got my car because this one car used to make us fight. All of you who are married know that the wife is either late or the other one is late. You are never on the same point. So that made us fight until I was like, God, please provide another car where I can move at my pace. So God provided the car, and I started driving back and forth. I go early in the morning to take the kids about 21 kilometers away from home, come back home, things like that. But I utilized the time I was driving every morning and every evening. I would pray, like I would shanda in that car every day. The times when I was pregnant, I would take walks very early in the morning and I would make prayer walks. I would pray. Banange webanga ninache nakola byonna nabikola. At some point, now this is a very sensitive thing. At some point, because man and woman, you know that when there's no intimacy, the sex also will fail at some point. And then I could not feel things anymore. I didn't have.
At that point, even the heart is dead. You're just there for.
You're just working, like surviving in surviving mode. You don't even know what is going on in your love relationship or your marriage relationship. There's no intimacy. You just go with tugende nebigenda. Abamaze okusenga mu byo matunuddewo mu abamanyi tulina okukola. Kitegeera abaana balina okusoma. So you go in that. You move, and then things keep building up. We still did not stop fighting about the shop. Actually, we created another shop. We created another shop, Nezibera Bidi.
Because in a branch.
Now, there were different shops.
Okay.
Another grocery store, and then we started working. At some point, we started working very well together. We kind of grasped it. And then somehow the fight would still come in. Kati ate nga kivira ddala mu kisenge. I'm not going to get into much detail with that, but I'm sure all of us understand that. So one of these days, I'm running. One of these days I talk to some friends like, Banange, things are not happening in my bedroom. They're like, oh, there are these herbs you can use and, you know, stuff like that. So I get herbs. Natandika okunywa nga nyweno nga nyweri. And you know, by the way, it is strange because even with my second born, I used herbs to be able to cleanse my womb and I give birth. And I remember the moment I took it 1 month, I was good to go. So this time I take the herbs, they were not working. I said, Banange, what do I do? I said, God, this thing has to come around. So I tried to get all solutions to kind of save
marriage work.
Yes.
Save.
I just couldn't see. Remember, I told you I went into marriage to find a sense of belonging. I went into this marriage so I can have something of myself to nurture. Women, we are nurturers. And so in this moment in time, I'm like, God, this one thing cannot leave. I cannot see this going down. I need this so bad. So he found the herbs. And there was trouble.
Tagenze kugamba omuloga. Oh my God. No.
I tried, but he couldn't let me explain. Then the beatings began again. This time they were more serious. And I will maybe just bring out one particular one for my viewers out there. This one particular day, I think he was so angry, super angry. I don't even know why I had not yet learned his patterns of anger. I was also a bit, I think, young and immature to get to know the patterns of his anger. I didn't even know anything existed like, you know, being, having anger issues. And also the addiction had escalated.
The alcohol.
Actually.
Addiction.
He even taught me how to take it. Remember when I told you things were now okay? He taught me to take the alcohol. Oh, nga tugunywanga tuzina.
Nochamuka. Kati Yesu omusibidde mu kabada.
Ne Yesu nga ngenda nensaba.
Namugamba munange.
Nze nali simanyi kunywa mwenge because my mom had never showed us something like that. Our dad passed away so when we were young. We came from a very small background, you know. So at this moment, I was now learning things. And when things got bad, like terribly bad, he would use the alcohol to help with the anger issues, but then escalate him. Now, me, when I would take, I would literally shut down. But at some point it became an addiction to me because I felt like it's the only thing that would help me get sleep.
Calm me down
and maybe sleep. Because there are days he would come, he would shout and ng'ayomba nnyo n'owulira ng'ogenda kugwa eddalu. Bagamba nti abakazi bayomba. Naye mbabuulire, I cannot take a man who quarrels.
Omusajja yayomba ate yasukkawo.
Yayombanga to the point that n'abeewaka baatandikanga okumutya. Nga bwe tuwulira eŋŋombe nga buli omu adduka. I usually make this joke. We used to call him a military man. So we would run, and at that point I know that now I cannot even run. He has to come back, I have to make sure he has water to shower, I have to make sure he has food. And then you're seated there, you're literally trembling. Meanwhile, I'm still pregnant. So time reaches, we go through that. And then time reaches to give birth, I go give birth. I actually took myself to the hospital, checked myself in, and yet, like, there was no excuse for him not being around. But the first thing I'm to call a chatayagala. I went and checked myself into the hospital. I called my mom, I'm like, it is time. She took a bus and came, took care of me. So through the time of birth, things were like kind of okay. There were no fights, no major fights, until I went back home after I think a few days. So I would wake up very early in the morning and take long walks because we were staying in the middle of like nowhere. So I would take, it was nice vegetation, I would take the long walks and pray, and you know, I knew that prayer was my survival point. And at some point, I cannot say that my prayers did not work. But remember, I did not say that I was in the right marriage. Okay? The prayers helped me survive. And so, as my baby, I think, was making, I'm trying to remember the months. I think she was about 9 months.
The youngest?
Yes, the third one. So I drive back and forth. Of course, we had fights at the shop, but this time I had surrendered everything to him, and I'm like, let him be the decision maker. I am not going to intervene nowhere. Changamba chingendo kola.
Kati ng'otuula waka oba ng'ogenda ku
nga bwangamba tuule waka nga ntuula ate nga nakyo kimuyombya. Bwakugamba genda ku dduuka ng'ogenda. We had those fights in the shop because first it's like nga nawe bw'okwata akabebi ko nga kabebi ko. Gwamanyi bw'okakwata, gwamanyi bw'akwata basupplier bo. And then bw'ajja n'abacyankalanya, ono tagenda muwa sente, onamubanja, onamubanja, then batandika okubira madamu sente zange. Kati kwegamba nga tumanyi kyabikolera byonna. Ayagala okole ku dduka 24/7. Then you come and help with the organization. Then you have to cook. Then you have to take care of the kids. How old was I? And then he will quarrel that you did not give his pigs food.
The what?
The pigs.
Oh my God.
He would quarrel that you did not overlook the whole project of the chicken. You did not go to check. You have 1,000 things to manage, for crying out loud.
At that young age.
Genda kuduka siike enkoko deka bagitambuze. I mean, I appreciate that we did a lot.
Kati ng'obikola otya ng'olina olukindo, olina abaana.
I had to do everything.
Young ones abo abasembayo.
Byonna nali nina obikola. Nalinawo omukyala ewaka era yali annyamba era naye yali muntu mukulu nga nyambako okubeerako n'abaana naye ng'ono omuto ntambula naye kubanga yali ng'ayonka ate I want to oversee everything. Every time I would kind of be away from my kids, they would get malnourished bichi. Abaana bange mbaagala nnyo. I want to take care of them. And so I made sure I am taking care of them. Nga bonna basatu mbateeka mu mmotoka ne mbawalabula ne tugenda paka ku dduuka. I feed them. One of them was going to school, then the second one tumuteka mu daycare. Kati nga njagana yayo go lulimi yayo, you know, ayogire bichi. So I want like, and of course at some point there was no balance at all. I tried. And this was about 25 years, 26 I think. And then there's this one time when I was telling you he found the herbs. He was super angry. He called his best man. Najja nagamba mujje tubyoche. ne bajja ne babyokya. He made me confess. I repented. I did everything. Still, he was not at rest. He called my mom. He's like, "Muli balogo bichi bichi laba muwala wa ndoga." That thing really got prolonged. Like things just kept building and building until it all burst. And this one time when we were at home, he comes back, and I'm not thinking he's as angry as he is, but he had taken alcohol. And by then me, I had now stopped, because nalabanga techinyamba techingasa. Kati he comes back, may I have a sober mind? For him, he has loaded. And the truth is, let me tell you, my viewers, it's very hard to keep track every time. I had so many things to handle. Maybe I could say maybe I could have kept quiet, kept my mouth shut. But he came back and started asking me things. And then kongezako mugamba nedda kyabadde bwe kiti. Tanzikiriza kwogera. Tuli mu kisengo olwo. Banange simanyi gye yava. Kubanga he was like a few steps away from me. Simanyi gye yava nankwata bwati nankwata nanteka wati waggulu bwati. Nangamba manyi nti nsobola okukusula n'ogwa. Ne mugamba ate kati kiki. Berina, like he just literally shoved me off.
Abaana nga kati batandise kuwulira kigenda mu maaso.
Awo nga batabinaba kugira. Because ennyumba yali nnene. So ampulugumya, like he just throws me there like a thing. And then in the moment I come back to my senses, I'm like, wait a minute, they've just thrown me away, like, yeah, I'm on the ground. And then I start to get up, and then he comes for me. He's like, toina magezi, osmanyi bichi oli musiru, you know all those things they say. Oli mulogo, oberondoga, bichi. Nayogera ebintu bingi nga bwankuba. Nafuna hanga yali ya plastic, yali ya pink. Nagikwata. Nankuba nze nanezija ebinubule. Hanga nemenyeka. Ne kabera, the hunger broke and it was only this down part like this. He used it to work my body. And at some point I was like, God, am I experiencing that thing that Jesus did experience at some point? I'm very sorry. And then I'm like, are these the beatings that Christ got? In that moment he's beating me, but I've stopped thinking about it. And I'm like thinking, so why am I going through this? Why again am I in this? I called Jesus that day. I thought maybe I really wanted a miracle, that maybe an angel would come and intervene, because I felt like I was going to lose my life. He worked me. I got wounds all over my back. Today when you look at my back, you'd think I have tattoos. Whatever you see on me today has been the restoration of the Holy Spirit. That day the beating was so bad that my eye, this one, almost went out. I had beatings all over my hands. Some of them have disappeared. And I try to put on long things so that people don't see much. And of course today we have filters and makeup. And in that moment, I'm like remembering the beatings on the cross. Like, God, do I go through the same thing like you went through? I cannot say it had them. It was the same thing, but I felt the pain. Because my wounds in the morning, I noticed, were all scaled up, like there was blood coming out. And then in that moment, I'm like, what do you want me to do? So I do it, and you stop the beating. Please tell me. He said, I want you to go. I'm like, okay. Everything you tell me, I'm going to say yes.
Go where?
To your home. I'm tired of you. And so he goes and he packs my suitcase. Meanwhile, he packs Natekamu, I think he put one dress, and he put curtains. I don't remember anything else. He put like ebintu ebitategeerekeka. Now twala suitcase. Abana bali bebase. I don't know if they remember. They could have heard the noises. Because my daughter recently told me, "Mommy, why did it take you that long?" And I was like, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean?" I did not know what she was talking about, because these are things that happen long. And she's like, "Why did you wait for that long for you not to get out of that home? My dad could have killed you."
So that means by this time they had known what was happening. All along you thought they didn't know.
I did not know. Yeah, I did not know they knew. Because even the time he was doing all this, it was in the middle of the night. I was hoping they were sleeping.
Yes,
Probably he was also hoping they were sleeping.
Trust me, I don't.
And then in that
sleep.
moment, he took me to the car, put in the suitcase, nangamba, nakola bwatyo mukono. I'm like, "Chichati, nangamba, give me your identities, your your passports, give me everything. Give me your identity card, your ATMs, everything." Nembikwata nembimwa.
Ngabyagazaaki.
Nkujira. He gets them, takes them back to the house. Nangamba kati olwaleero njagala omanye nti nkutwala wa maamawo. Yangamba dda nti bwe mba nkukooye nkuzangayo. Kati nkukooye nkuzaayo. Naye ngenda kuvuga. Nkuweemu experience nga gy'ogenda ofuna ng'otuuse wa maama. Okuba wa maama waliyo obwavu bwereere. Naba mwena temwasoma. I ran out of the car to find him in the house when he had taken the identity cards. I went down on my knees. I cannot forget that night. It was at 3 a.m. I went down on my knees and I cried and I told him, "Please, just give me one more chance. I'm going to try and behave. But let me take care of my children."
So he was taking just you and leaving the children behind?
Yes.
Including the 9 months old baby?
Yes.
In the middle of the night at 3 a.m.
Yes. I knelt down. I begged and begged and begged many times. He said, "No. Chiwedde." I'm like, "Kale wachiri abantu bafune butakanya. People get all these fights all the time and people can sleep in different bedrooms. It's okay.
Kale wachiri katwale ebisenge."
Yes, twawule ebisenge. Buli omu akola ebyo naye we raise the children. He said, "No. Get in the car." I went to the car and he started to drive. Like tewetegese kutambula. You're not ready for the journey. I did not carry a sweater. I did not carry nothing. I was in a sleeveless, like dress, which when he was beating me, he tore apart. In the middle of the night, he starts to drive out. He drove the car which I used to drive, which I was calling mine. So he drives. He puts the windows down. Nangamba kankulageko nga bwogenda okubonaabona kuba ewamwe muli baavu n'okusoma temwasoma. He drives in the cold. It had rained. He puts the windows down. He was in a jumper. Empewo nefuwanzi nenjugumira. I started shivering. I shivered. I said, "God, okay, if going is going to save the situation, just help me get out of here alive." Meanwhile, he had done whatever he wanted. As we go down the road, there were bumps on the way. Ngabigwamu ebinya ngabigwamu gwamanya like he would fall it is cold. Right after about 20 minutes into our journey, there's a place called I forget the name. He stops.
olwo abaana
basigaddeyo n'omuwala omuto kozi naliyo omukyala omukulu ng'agenze nga tutuuka awantu wano ng'ayimirira nga ngamba naye mukazi gw'ojooga n'olyoka onkola bwoti n'olyoka ompisaamu amaaso n'alyoka addamu n'ankuba buto n'ankuba. He boxed me in my scissor. He strangled me. I'm like, please help me. He strangled me to the point that I could not literally make a sound. And then he's like, get out of my car. In the middle of nowhere.
Sunny, allow me to ask my producer to play us a song called God of Vengeance by G. You see, I love that song so much. Let us have that song and we shall come back. This was Be Hopeful Show. Thank you so much, viewers. We shall meet again tomorrow. This is too much for me, but God loves you. Let us hear that song. Welcome back to Bethany.
Thank you.
Munange we bali ku enduringa.
Oh, I think it was just by God's grace.
Thank you so much for coming back.
And thank you so much for having me again.
People have been sending me message nga temujja ku mpewo watugambye essaawa 3 konze banne tujja.
Mukama tumwebaza olw'okutuwa opportunity.
Amen. How are the kids?
The kids are okay.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So we are going to start straight to our story where we stopped yesterday.
Yes.
Yesterday twakomye nga bakugobye kanshiyite bwentyo bakugambye kati ddayo. After all mama we yagamba bwe mba nkukooye nkuzzeeyo kati nkukooye kankuzzeeyo bakuvuga ekiro.
Kati bwe yalinga mu kwogerawo empozi kye nabadde nerabidde obbagamba nti bwe yankubanga emiggo gino ejahanga yankubanga njuliza muganda wange kale gwe mba mpitanga cousin wange. He would beat me like when he's actually talking to me about my own cousin who I had brought to help me at the shop to help manage things there because we were employing her. But the time he was beating me, he would beat me nganjuli zoli, like he's telling me, I'm going to bring her to your home, you know, you have to go away. Now like she's the one I'm going to bring. And all this, of course, had come from some time ago when I was asking him, because I used to see things happen between them that were really unreal, you know.
Your cousin and him?
Yes. Okay. Kati, like one of those things, and I must mention that I'm going to try and, highlight these things because there are a lot of things. And then many of you who can buy my book will be published by the end of the year. You will get everything. So this time, because I cannot take up a whole week of sharing, I want to be able to give a few highlights here and there. And so one of those episodes I had asked him about my cousin, why he would come back home at midnight, and then he mentioned that he was teaching her how to drive. Now, how do I exactly find out about this cousin issue? I used to, I'm the kind of person who sees things and I just let them be. Ebintu byange mbikwata mpola nnyo. I don't sibamira kintu ngenda okutukako nga nina wiino yenna okitegeera. So by the time I'm asking him, I already had gotten certain ideas, not even gossip, because I clearly don't listen to gossip. But one of those days, as we were traveling from Gulu to going to Kampala, I happened to sleep in the car because he was driving. And then he parked somewhere around Midjoya. And I like fall asleep for a little bit. And then it's like I saw a vision actually. And then I saw him entering a lodge with my cousin. And then in the moment, I woke up. I'm like, what did I just see? I'm like, no, there's just no way. But by then, I had gotten several dreams that would help me realize that whatever I was dreaming was usually true, most of the time, at least. No dreams that came to me were unreal. Eranga bwenze bwendoto omuntu leero enkya mulaba. That is, I think, you know, according to how God designed me. So I went home. I waited for the whole thing. I didn't ask him about it. Then when we went back home, I asked my cousin about it. I asked her, what is going on between you and my husband? And she first didn't speak. And I told her, by the way, before I come to ask you such a question, I have data. Okay? So you better tell me what happened on that day, on this day like this, because he had traveled to Kampala and she was in Kampala. So I told her to take a bus. She insisted she wanted to come with him. He insisted he was going to drive her back. And because of the things that I had already come seeing, it is not right for you guys to come back together. Let her take a bus. They insisted on traveling together. So I asked her about that particular day. And she said, well, we stopped in Mijera. And she ended there. And then I'm like, so what happened? She's like, well, he got his room, I got my room. I'm like, girl, don't even lie to me. I'm like, do you know how I even found out? Or you didn't even think I would find out?
And yet you had had that dream that day.
Yes, I had had the dream 3 days before. I'm asking her this and she was lying to me. And then I asked her, did he ever make any advances to you? And then she's like, there's this one time he was teaching me how to drive and he started touching my boobs. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I don't even want more. I already have enough. Because you do not start doing that to your wife's cousin. Okay? Omuliro bw'ogusembeza omuzigo. What does it do? It melts.
Yes.
So no one can tell me that they did not do anything. However, I am not here to judge. The thing is, I was talking about what led to some of those vigorous fights, because every time I would ask him about this girl, I call his phone, it's busy. I call her phone, it's busy at the same time. And then he's talking out of the house. You know, as a wife, you have these instincts and you can tell that this is happening, you know. And so every time I would question him, he would become very aggressive. So that night, yankubanga anjuliza kazini wange nti nja muleta afumbe. She will be ajja kujabere makago kubagwe wasalawo okusiruwala, you disrespect me, nangamba omusajja alina okusajjalaata.
Oh yeah.
This is a born-again Christian we're talking about, and I'm trying to be as sensitive as I can. Okay? It is not okay. It is not. Now, someone yesterday was telling me, how come you did not share how stupid you are in that marriage? And the thing is, my viewers, I want to tell you today that whether I was stupid or not, there's nothing I did to deserve the kind of torture I went through. And today, I have a voice because I decided to come out. No one deserves that kind of torture.
No one.
Now,
kubanga omuntu ne bwaba alina kyakoze ng'owulira tokyamusobola, you let go, you leave them.
Exactly. Just let them go. You know, if you feel like you can't, you know. Anyway, so I wanted
maybe
to...
people are judging because there's that part when you said yakugamba nti genda noga sijja genda.
Abantu
abamu bagamba lwaki teyagenda, lwaki yali yeesiba ku musajja. But and they're the same people who be like,
nalina omwana wa myezi 3. Omwana wa myezi 3. Omulala nga wa myaka I think 4 years. Okay? You tell me to get out after you've hit me so bad. Then you want me to go, then you come back at my house and apologize for what you did, then you expect me to come back. What
actually
kind
you
of
tried
thing is
even
that?
Going, but he
yes, era yajjanga n'akola ki. Now, I don't want us to prolong this, but that day nga bwe nabadde njogera jjo, twatuuka Kamudiini ng'amaze okukuba ebikonde ankubye annozeza bulungi. He had hit me so bad that I was literally at this point not even feeling my own body. He tells me, get out of the car. in the middle of nowhere. It's dark and rainy. Okay? And I'm like, God, where am I going? What if I bump into someone who will even rape me? He tells me, get out of the car. I get out of the car because I have to listen. I get out of the car. He drives off, I think, like a mile. And then I'm there, shivering, cold. Remember, he had hit me and torn my clothes apart. I was literally naked. And then I decided to start praying. I'm like, God, right now you're the only person who can save me.
Now, what kind of prayer were you praying at that moment?
I don't know, but I just had to pray something. I needed God to help me somehow. In fact, I prayed and I told God, if you get me out of this situation, I am telling you, I will never come back to this man again. I promised myself. And I'm like, God, just give me a way out. Later, I don't know how this is going to end. If you get me out alive, I will not go back. So I stand there for about 30 minutes. He drives back in reverse. He comes back. He's like, get into the car. I get into the car. Don't even sit in front. Sit behind. The one I used to drive. I sit behind. He pulls down the windows. He drives. Tuba tutuuke Bombo. He stops. And then he said, we are going to get out here. I'm like, okay. Yes. I just had to do everything without even asking at this point because I did not know what was going to happen next. So he stops there somewhere in a lodge. That was about 4 a.m.
in the morning.
Yes. He stops at a lodge and then he tells me to get in.
In the lodge?
Yes. My viewers, you all know what happened. I cannot speak about that experience because my daughter might be watching. But it was the most hurtful thing that I had ever experienced. With tears flowing down my eyes. I didn't even know how I looked. At around 5:30, he tells me, get out. We drive all the way back to Kampala. And I remember he stopped by Capital Shoppers because I had come with none of my things and I was in a torn thing. He went and bought a towel. I don't remember what else he bought, but I remember he bought a towel. And then he got one of the dresses he had packed in my suitcase. I dressed up. He stopped at my mom's place. Very early in the morning, my mom, I think, had just gone. I reached home, and reaching home gave me a certain kind of peace that I cannot compare to anything. I knew I had reached where I had to reach. For some reason, I had peace. And the moment I entered, there was a young girl who used to take care of the home. She picked the suitcase and brought it in. He drove away. Now he came, I went to the sitting room and I sat and I blacked out for about 8 hours. I did not know what was happening. Omwana yajanga nampita, she used to call me she came and called me for breakfast, nga siwulira, nampita okulya, byonna nga abiteekaawo, naye nga nkonako nga siwulira, natandika n'okweraliikirira. I came back to my senses at around 9 p.m. when my mom's, she kept calling me, she called me. But before all this, as I sit in this living room, I get out the phone and I see how I look. And man, it was scary. I could not see through this eye. I could not even cry. Now the pain in my body was starting to show up because yali yankuba like in the night. Nga sibiwulira muntu wabakuba oba towulira. The pain starts to show up in the next days. You people, I cannot explain the pain. My mom came and started calling me at 9 p.m. She called until when I like come back to my senses, and I'm looking at her, and now she feels like she's so far. And then she's like so perturbed, she's even crying. And I'm like, what has happened to me? Meanwhile, like I don't remember what happened. And then I get up and I cannot get up. I'm in so much pain in my body. And then she's like, what do we do? I don't even have money to take you to the hospital. Now this gentleman had left me with 200,000. Nangamba, njagala ogambe mama wo bye wakoze, omala okwate bus encha okomewo.
Wanje.
So when my mom started speaking, she could not even speak. She was just looking at me. She couldn't eat. Na akava amaziga nagaba naye kati bino tubikolidde ki? I don't even have money to take you to the hospital. Like, let me just sleep for today, because the truth is I cannot even move. The worst part about this pain is I had bruises in my mouth because he would box me and I would bite myself.
Oh yes.
My tongue was full of wounds. My mouth was so full. I cannot forget that pain. I could not eat. Do you know what it feels to have appetite and you cannot even eat? The best thing I could do is I would take milk, which is like lukewarm. I experienced that for about 2 weeks. I got the strongest painkillers to be able to take away the pain, and I eat. But still, it would damage the wounds inside. Another cousin came in the morning to take me to the hospital. They took me to AAR and they asked me what happened. I told them I fell in robbers. I could not say it was my own husband. It was such a shame.
And besides shame, go gamba kati banambuza bayinza picking it out story baga nedde police case. Ate nekuleetera ebizibu ebirala.
Kubanga already nali nakiteekayo dda ku police, nothing was done. Okitegeera. So now I come and I'm at the hospital. They diagnose me. They're like, oh, we need to do an X-ray. I'm like, what? I'm like, if I don't even have money, that I go look for the money, we need to do an X-ray. I didn't have money. They gave me the drugs, gave me antibiotics, bichi nintandika bimira. Saddayo mu ddwaliro nengamba kanziremu nkowole Katonda wange ajja kunyamba. Meanwhile, I would get a pain in my neck on this side, on the back, and I didn't understand it. It would come like so sharp, but I was like, I can't afford to go to the hospital. Let me wait. Turns out today, after a few years, I went back to the hospital this time because the pain kept intensifying, and they realized that 3 of my discs got dislocated.
Oh my God!
Like I don't know that language of the doctor, but they got out of place. And when I went to the doctors, they were asking me what happened. Have you been in an accident before or something? And I'm like, no. But as I'm contemplating there, I remembered. So I told the doctor that maybe this and this could have happened because I went through domestic violence. He's like, that's right. When he would beat me, I would jerk my head behind. And so that the 3 discs interlocked. That is another story for another day. I am grateful today that I'm able to even have my hands and have my feet and my eyes. There's so much the Lord has restored in me. Now, going back to the story, that was a very, very hard time. My grandmother passed away between that very time when I was dealing with my wounds both outside and inside. The inside ones, I had no idea the depth, but I knew I was damaged completely. We treated the ones that people could see. I would put on cover up myself, and I wanted to go speak to my grandmother about this thing, but she was very sick. And the day I plan to go is the day she dies. And yet she had like asked for me, where is she? And I find out she dies. If I could even look in her eye. And that really broke my heart. And then he had the audacity to show up. Shows up with a nice new Samsung Galaxy Edge. I bought for you a phone. We need to go back home. And the truth is, I got the phone, I gave it back to him. I told him the phone cannot solve any issue we have between us. It is okay if I don't even have a phone. He had brought the children with him. He told them to go tell mommy to come and we go home. And the truth is, all this was so hurting to me. He started using the children against me. Nataniko baga baby into.
Omukulu nga yenkana ate ebiseera ebyo?
I would say she was about 5.
Kati nga cousin aliwo?
Ngasigaddeyo ku dduuka. Actually, I'm told the time I had left, the time he had brought me back to Kampala, she's the one who took over my home. But taking care of the home. Ng'abeera waka, olwo ne yamusanga nga yeesibye tawulo yange.
Wow.
Anyhow, it took me time to first of all come around with everything that was happening. And I told him I did not have an idea when I would be back, because he kept persisting, come back home. No apologies, no nothing, come back home. We have work to do.
Ate nga lwaki apologizinga ego wasobye?
Era munange. Mbadde ekyo nkyerabira.
Go wasobya n'omunyiiza n'akugoba n'akugamba ogendeko ku holiday. Ku leave.
So yesterday when I was meditating and I was praying, the Lord reminded me of something. Around about the time I told you that he had found herbs, someone had given me a set of herbs. Nga taddemu n'akapapula yali abiweereza ku bus. It was an older woman. Kati nga ngambye omusajja tojja mukkiriza kukuba tumufunire ki amagezi. Nze nali muto. So nakwata ekintu nakimpereza ku ki ku bus. Naye bwe nakikwata, I didn't even like look inside to see what exactly she had brought. I got the things and placed them around my suitcases. And the truth is, the thing got lost between me and God today. It got lost. I looked for the thing for months nga nkinoonya.
Kati nga omukyala akuweereza eddagala okole kimbo omusajja
yali aŋŋambye nti bwe nkifuna nkigulewo nsome instructions then mukubire. Okitegeera? Kati ekintu ekyo kimbulako. Now, yesterday I had told you guys that because of the trauma I had gone through, I taught myself how to forget. Because yayogeranga ebigambo bingi n'akuvuma n'akusesebula n'akuteeka wali. Kati nga ebigambo ebyo nze ng'omuntu tebinnyamba. I am the type of person, I think this is just the way God made me. I take on people's words. Bonnimbi ate kinnuma nnyo nga bw'okiwulira. So I don't take a lie. I take on words, just like God has taught me about his word. Bw'ampa ekigambo kiba kyekyo. When God sends his word, it is true. So that is how naturally I was made. No, because of all these insults that he used to tell me, oli musiru, oli muki, tewasoma, bichi, byonna ebyo, natuka nampita ne sitaani, oli sitaani mwennyini. I had to find a way of coping with my situation. So I taught myself how to forget. And even up to now, there's been an effect on my memory that I never remember things. Tuyinza okuba twogedde wano ekintu, then I get out, I'm like, what did she tell me? And I like try to look for the memory in my head. It's taken time for me to heal. And I can't say I'm 100% healed, but it's been a work in progress. I've not had an opportunity to see a psychologist or something like that. The Holy Spirit has been there every step of the way meanwhile. Okay, but now coming back to what I was talking about, this thing I forgot where it was. Kati mukusanga hubs ziri ze nalinga nywanga nteeka mu chai nabyo nabisangirako.
Yeah. Katugende mu break tukomewo tubulire kyati. Be hopeful show tuline Zani Favor tugenda mukummulamu naye tovaawo tukomewo. Tumaze otegeera nga biwatika oleze jjajja akuwadde ebintu otereza ofumbo awona emiggo ate bikubuzeeko
nga bimbuzeeko
ate ye abirabye
ate ye n'abiraba kati akatogo akaali awo emiggo ne giruma.
So at this point, had you become so desperate that you really could do anything to make your marriage work? Like, who advised you now to get those herbs?
There was a lady I knew, I don't remember, she was from Kampala here. Naye omukyalo oyo yalinga avasaidizeyo obuddo.
Okay.
Nali mutegedde from another girl who used to take care of. Kati nangamba omusajja oyo tajja kuddamu kukuba tumusalire amagezi. The truth is, my viewers, first of all, to even say yes to this was wrong. Okay? I was at the same time very desperate, just like many of us out there who are desperate to keep this thing going. Even just accepting to take it on the bus, whether I had to do it or not, was wrong, completely wrong. And I do not, I take responsibility of that. And between you and I, or between God and I never did whatever she had asked me to do, the instructions. Wangoli yabigwako nga sinaba nakola ki, nga sinaba nabikozesa. Era nenenyeza emirundi mingi omutima gwange ne gumenyeka olw'ensonga ezo. However, omuntu yenna ayinza okugamba nti maybe ekyo kya escalating fights, but that came in after the fights were there. Okay? Because I remember narrating yesterday the episode in the super custom etc. So I want to kind of cut this short because it's very, very long. Now I go back to I will go through the whole period of my grandmother passing away, and then this man calls me one time and reminds me, by the way, we got the visas, we are going to the US, so you better style up. Nemugamba, how do I even start going with these wounds like this? Nangamba, no, you've got to come back. Abana bali kusonyiwa. Do your kids ever forgive you when they notice that you refuse to go with them to the US? Kati ng'omuzadde netandika okwetereeza.
Kati US nga mugenda kubeerayo bamwali mugenda kukyala?
Twali tugenze kukyala. We are going to stay there for about 3 months. So I brace myself and I'm like, okay, I need to think of my children now. What will they think if I cancel this whole thing just because I'm being selfish? And so I decide, okay, let me gather myself. Kati nga naye sinema kubisiba bizzaayo. Abazadde baagamba nedda togenda kugenda. Leka asooka ajje. Bwe n'ategeka n'ajja ne best man we ne beegayira nti munnaye mutusonyiwe tajja kuddamu kumukuba. Ne tubikwata ne tubizzaayo. Jjukira wali emabega. Nagambye nti nasaba Mukama esaala ebugamba sijja kuddayo. I had prayed to God prior to that episode that I just told him if he could remove me out of that situation,
you would never look back.
I would never look back. But still, I went back. Now going back, I was a little more wise because my mom would ask me, "Naye gwe bakubanga todizaayo, like tewerwanako wadde?"
Naye mama n'akukkiriza naye newe kati abaana akola ki gwosazeewo dda?
Kyakola okitegeera abaana nali mbalese. I had left my kids behind.
And your heart was also left behind.
My heart was literally in so much pain because I had left part of myself behind. Those children were my life. And so I decided to go back. But this time as I'm going back, I told my mother-in-law, I told her, Mommy, please let's go. How you come and visit us in Gulu? You've taken long. Yeah, okay. Ngatula mu motoka.
Olwo maama yali tamanyanga bigenda maaso.
Ebisinga yali tabimanyi. Yawuliranga nti she used to hear we would get fights here and there, but she did not know how bad. Yes. And so she gets onto the car, she comes. And then she comes, and then one of these things that happened, I had seen something that had happened at the shop. Between him and my cousin, again, I asked him. As I asked him, we were like in the bedroom at around 10 p.m. Nangamba nakugamba musajja alina okusajjalata. I told you, you have to let me be with my freedom. And so in that moment, I don't know where he got the belt. He started whacking me. And then I shout. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law is in the next bedroom. He thought he had locked that door because his intention for coming in was to whack me, like to hit me. And he had locked the bedroom. But that bedroom somehow, I don't even know what happened, but when they came and banged on the door,
it was open.
I don't know how it opened, but he had locked it because I remember him locking it. When they came to bang on that door, they really hit it so hard and it opened. What is happening? What is happening? Yes. So we go to the living room and she's like, I want to hear now both sides. What is happening? What happened? Why are you beating her? And so I tell her my story. I'm like, I found out this about him and my cousin today. And then what is funny is, I think I just never learned my lessons, because if I could stop asking about those things, maybe the beatings would have stopped. But he was my husband, for crying out loud, you know? And so I tell her this story. I didn't tell her depth. And I'm like asking one request. I'm like, if it is not true that he's not moving out or he's not slept with my cousin, let him touch that Bible. We were both Christians, and swear that. No, I didn't even need him to swear. I just needed him to touch it if he had not slept with her. He got the Bible and najikanyuga across the room. He threw it across the room. And I feared. For a moment, I'm like, what did I just see?
A Christian man doing that?
Yes. More than Christian, actually. Now, there was a type of juice we had made. As my mother-in-law is asking him, no, why are you acting so ruthless and aggressive? We are just asking simple questions. Tell me. He had a glass of juice he was taking. Meanwhile, he was drunk. And he poured it across the room with Wali to today. And then I just knew now this is a type of thing that we are dealing with, something that is beyond me. When he did that, he drove off. That was now about 3 a.m., 2 a.m. Like, it was like the whole night. Like, these things would happen prolonged in the nights. And I'll tell you, my friends, there are so many nights I'd never slept. So many nights. I would literally pray to God that he turns me into a lion, so that when he comes, he sees me and he does not touch me, he goes away. And there are many times it happened. I don't know if I was really turned into a lion, but that was my prayer, because it is something that he would fear. There's a night I specifically remember, he came, he hooted around midnight from those, Smanyi driving lessons with my cousin. He comes, he hoots. And every time I hear his hoot, I am terrified, I am sweating, I get anxiety attacks, I get panic attacks. I'm like, where can I hide? Where do I go? God, turn me into something, either maybe make me invisible that he cannot see me. And that night I remember he came and he switched on the light in the bedroom. I wasn't sleeping, but I pretended to be sleeping. And he came and looked at me like this, and then went out and slept, and then he slept in the car. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. That was like the norm of the nights. And then the day comes and you have to pretend. Now, I'm trying to kind of break this down.
So what did his mother say? Weyavuga n'agenda ekiro ng'alabye byonna bibaddewo.
Twatulao, everyone was in awe because I remember also his sister was around. Kuba namanya nti no, this big house, I needed to bring people in. Pantaase, okitegeera. So time reached around after like 2 months nga babeerawo. So we decided we were now arranging to go to the US. So I told him I'm going to go to Kampala first because twalina okumanyaganya ewaffe. They needed me there, and so we agreed properly. Because like every morning that came, I had to pretend nothing happened last night. I had to be in my right behavior. Okay. I also haven't told you the episodes he beat me from the shop. He would he would call me to the store behind. And it's like, I want to talk to you. There's so much I could talk about. Now, this particular day, we agreed. He said yes. He gave me the transport. He even paid for my bus ticket. He got he literally drove me up to the bus station. He's the one who even carried my suitcase into the bus. I reached Kampala. I go for my things. After those 2 days, he drives back all of them to Kampala because they were supposed to meet me in Kampala. We arranged and then go to the airport. His sister runs and comes and tells me, do you know what happened when you left? I'm like, no. Yakubye mama wafe emigo. I'm like, what?
No.
I am serious. She was telling me these things and I'm like, what caused it? Nangamba. He said,
no.
She's the one who has made you kunoba. She has made you to leave the home. I'm like, but you people, I left because I was going into kumanyagana. What has brought
his
this whole
own mother?
Yes, mbunamu walula kuseminti bwati from the bedroom. I think she had had a heart attack or something, and then for him he was saying she's pretending.
Oh my God.
I got super scared, and I'm like, I don't even know at this point what is happening in my own life. And now it has happened with his own mother. And then as the sister tells me, I'm like, you know what?
Did you
Mbadde mbiyitamu naye neetaaga okubeera nti nno omuntu omu abeera witness ku byempitamu kubanga abadde ankuba. We are in the middle of nowhere. No one comes to my aid. But I did not bring you people so you can be hurt in the process.
I just wanted you to see what I'm going through.
I sat and I'm like, I cannot begin to explain or express the pain I am going through to you. But one thing I'll tell you, I have done it all. I have prayed, I have done everything in my power to stay in this marriage, but I cannot stay anymore. If he can even reach a point of disrespecting his mother like that, I cannot stay in this place no more. I'm like, you know what? I could have taken on this burden and go ahead and pray again, but it's not going to change. Not because I don't have faith, but this is it. I'm like, you people, take on your burden, pray for him. After the 2 days, we went to the US. Now, let me tell you something. He was at his best behavior in the US. I had never seen that kind of side of him. He would open the door for me. He would buy me flowers. He would cook the food. He was very sober.
Wanji?
I mean, the donors had to say he's a good man. That is how I knew that these
whatever
things
he did, he
are
intended.
money.
Kwanga banenda kubuzoba yalina ekikyamu ku mutwe.
Omwenge gwali gumuletera ebintu ebyo byonna kati nga nange mmanyi nti when he stays off the alcohol, just maybe he will be okay.
Be better.
But now he was, for 3 good months he was sober.
Nga tanywa mwenge.
Nga tanywa mwenge. Ate nga mu nyumba z'abazungu gubeeramu. He was at his best behavior, except for one night when we went, they organized a retreat for us. I think, like you can't deceive some people. When there's something going on, they will see that these two, even when there's pretense. They noticed and they checked in us for a couple's retreat and they took on our kids. So here we are, and we are in this hotel, Hilton, having fun. He went and bought me a bottle of wine. We took the wine. That night he was very caring. Even when he took the wine, he was never violent. Now, I'm kind of trying to speed up this thing. So we reach, the trip gets done. He was at his best behavior. We reach Shell when we are landing. We reached Shell and Entebbe. He got out of the car. He's like, I'm getting snacks for the kids because it was very early in the morning. He goes. As he's coming back, I notice. I'm like, it's like now the old person was back. I'm like, I'm not sure. So I look into deep in his eye and I see his eyes are red. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought we had talked about these things. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I thought we talked that there's no more alcohol. He's like, eh. No. He said, we are back to Uganda. Back to our life. I said, what? He's like, life needs to move on.
Wanji?
I was terrified. But I was like, no, there must be a way. Meanwhile, I had gotten this idea that this thing is going to work. Yes. I had this idea, and from the US I was excited.
All along, I was waiting to tell you. Did you ever consult a doctor? Like, did you encourage him to go and seek medical attention? Because
I did
such
everything.
things are done by people who are mentally ill. So if you're telling me you were in the US for 3 good months and he did not do anything, he even took some kawaii which would maybe sparkle, and
Yes.
nothing happened.
Nothing
even after taking
happened.
wine.
And
then mukomawo kumukubonaga akati tuzeeyo ku
tuzeeyo ku kikadde. We are back to Uganda. I said, nengamba kati nimugamba nti. Then he tells me, we are not going back to Gulu. You're going to your mother's place. Then I'm like, ate why? I'm like, I've lived out of suitcases for 3 months. I want to go back to my home. I had so much I had planned. Like, you go, you see ideas in people's homes and you're like, oh, I need to go do this. I need to go do this.
Shopping. Shopping.
Of course we had bought stuff. I loved my family. I loved my kids. I loved my husband. Even with all
At that point,
pain, yes, I did. I forgave him every day.
Oh my God.
I wanted this one thing to work in my life. We had established so much together.
Yeah, that's the thing.
There was a blessing already. I didn't want to
lose everything.
Yes, and go back to zero. And now, here we are back, and he's like, you're not going to your house, you're going to your mother's place. And I'm like, no, I'm going to my house. Kachoronge mpaka zikomyewo na auntie. Nerabidde biri ebikadde.
Nerabidde ne Sarah gye wasaba.
Nerabidde ne Sarah gye nasaba. And so he's like, okay. Nga agivuga. Tugende Gulu. We go to Gulu, which, get to the house. Oh, I was super excited being in my home. In the night, he comes back from the shop because he had to make sure things there. Nga gyali yagana omugoba yagamba yagenda muwera school fees agende ku campus. Yes, she was young. This is a girl I used to visit at school. I used to pay tuition for. She was young. Lwakwanti nno omwana omuwala atuuka n'akula nateekako ku bbeere guno olowooza nti yenkana ne mukyalawo. Tutuuse Gulu. He goes to check on the shops. He comes back at around 9. He calls me on the phone. He parks at the farm all the way up there. He calls me. He's like, can you come? Put on your boots and come. I'm like, okay. I put on my boots. I go. I walk. It's 6 acres. I walk through the bushes, Vichy. I go. He's like, I want to show you something. I'm like, okay. He takes me to the pigsty. And he's like, do you notice that these pigs have not eaten today? I'm like, Maybe they gave them food and they got finished. They finished it. He's like, no, you did not make sure my pigs ate.
Pigs tezalina caretaker.
They had a caretaker, but
olina okumakinga sure nti naawe ogendayo anti gwe mukyala olina buli kimu kirabirira.
Anaye mbabuulire waliwo webikuyitirirako. So I was having my Fitbit watch, which I had been given as a gift in the US. Kyava agikwata nangamba mpesaawo eyo. Ne mugamba ate lwaki? Olwo empaka zitandise okukomawo. Nangamba otandise okummanyira. We go to the US, you speak about your own life. You don't speak about what we are doing here. Katula bakuwa ebintu, okusinga okutuwa ssente. So he gets the watch from me. Nenjimuwa. Natandika okungamba nti you refused to do what I told you to do. I'm like, do what? He's like, you refused to stay in Kampala. I told you to stay with your mother. I'm like, but me, I want to stay here. Nankwata na nyimusa bwati. He held me and literally put me up here. Nangamba, do you know I can throw you down?
And he has done that before.
And he has done it before. I told him, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go to Kampala. In fact, let me go back and park. Nangamba, if you do one stupid thing, he looked in my eyes. If you do one more stupid thing, you're going to see what is going to happen to you. Nemugamba nta nzire wansi. Let me go and
park.
I go, after that, I walk back very fast, although I'm terrified. I'm like, this night over, when is it ending? I go back and start parking. Bwala kati bwatandika okulaba nga parking nze ngayita abaana. You see? Come and see your mother. She wants to leave us. And then I'm looking, I'm like, so what am I expected to do? In my heart, I could not answer at this point. I looked and I'm puzzled. Nabagamba, get her clothes, put them back in the closet. Because what? Nebukwate ngoye nebuza mu closet. Kumacha. In the morning, he's like, hey, you didn't pack?
Jesus Christ.
I'm like, nga sisobola amubuuza nga kyongamba kyengenda okukola. Nangamba parkinga n'ebintu by'abaana obiparkinga mbatwala Kampala. Ne tubiparkinga n'atutwala paka e Kampala. Nanga mugenda lira Christmas ewamu. Wow, I don't even know how much time we have. But that was another story altogether. He came around 31st Christmas ng'ewedde. N'alyoka ng'agunywedde mbw atutwala ku La Bonita. Bali bagenda tukubira mawulire awo. Because I could not remember the pin to his ATM. And then he's like, call Sophie, she will tell you. She's been the one using, yes, she's been the one using my ATM. I had no choice. I get the phone, I call her.
And she tells you the pin.
And she tells me the pin, and I'm like, Sophie, I want you to also listen to this. Please stay away from my husband. When he calls you, don't pick. First of all, I am your boss. Okay? Please, for this one time, kale engeri gyali e Kampala.
Mwesonyiwe.
Soko mwesonyiwe. Already nga yanangide.
Olonga your cousin yakugamba, did she ever admit that she was sleeping with your husband?
She never admitted, but she told me the episodes when he would touch her and caress her and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I don't even want to hear more. Okay? Because this thing would break my heart. It would change me. And now I tell her and she's like, okay. Now she didn't know I was down with her phone, with his phone now. And immediately I get off the phone from her, she's calling my husband. I'm like, this chick got to be kidding me. Forgive my language. And now I go back. I go back and I'm like, he's quarreling, you see this, you see that. Then he gets out. He leaves the kids and I in La Bonita, and I'm like, this shows that they are showing. It's not even for kids. And I'm looking.
Oh, you went there with the...
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm like, these things the kids cannot even watch. So I get out. I start looking for him. I go out and I find him on the car. He's talking on the phone. And then I call Sophia's phone. It is busy. And I'm okay. I'm like, done. So I try to call him, and then we wait on the doorway until when he came. I'm like, you know what, let's just go home. It was now approaching midnight, 31st. We go in. Then he drives so fast. He's going. He wants to go to Sheraton to show his kids fireworks and stuff. Policing him. Police kuba yali agonwe. Somehow mukama n'atuyamba naye yatuvuge mu motoka. He drove us through those bumps without even thinking twice. So we reach at my mom's place. Ngangamba, okay, now
the fireworks,
they did not see the fireworks because the police could not allow us in. There was too much jam, first of all, and then the roads were all blocked. You know the Kavuyo for 31st. And so we go home. He drives like a mad person. Abana baba montebe baba wa. Na mpulire nakuba nange nga mpulira amaziga gampita. Mugamba banange obusungu bwachi. Kati ndozanga Sophie byamugambi. I don't know. I mean, that is probably what I thought.
I think that's what
now
happened.
We reach home. I'm sorry, I'm like running through it very fast. We reach home and he's like, go get your things and we are going.
Where?
Back to Gulu. And I'm like, but my mom, I'm like, but my mom, yagenze. I cannot just go without even saying bye to her. He's like, get out of my car. I got out. So I go out, get into the house. Katinganzijayo n'abaana tuyingira enju. Ngatandika okuyomba. Ngamubuuza obedde oyogera ne Sophie. Ombuuza kochi. Why are you even asking me about this? I'm like, okay. So the argument escalates because I think he knew I knew something. And so he wants to hit me in my mom's home. And immediately I sense it. I run to one of the bedrooms and I lock myself in. Nenkwata esimu. Esimu yote yali tekyamba mu ngalo kati. Yes. I started calling my mom. Nemuteka ne ku speaker nemugamba mami bobo jjangu no wa police nkwegayiridde omusajja atabusa. Kati olabana atembalese muki mudiro. Na boyawulira ekyo nakwata abaana nabateeka mu motoka n'agenda. He got the kids and put them in the car and he left. So I go back after I'm terrified. I'm like, God, what is happening? I look around and his phone had fallen. I knew his passwords. So I get his phone, I go through his phone. I'm like, okay, let me now see what is happening. Kumbe the night, the Christmas, he had dinner with Sophie in one of those best nice hotels in Gulu, Church Hill Hotel. They had dinner. And then they are sending themselves these messages. I'm like, okay.
This is it.
This is it. He tried to call my phone and I totally blocked him because at this point I was so done. I'm not going back to this marriage. Castavia US viwede abana bebe nalineralikirira, but he had taken them and I'm like chonna chechiri chijja kugwa, but I'm not going back because this time if I go back he'll kill me. So I stayed at my mom's place, I think, for about 2 months. For her, she comes that night. She came back, I think, at around 2. She was from the same show we were actually watching. So she comes back, she's like, my mom has very few words, just like me. I started now thinking, what is the next thing I'm doing? I don't have my kids. I don't know if they ate bachali bato. Omtondoza yalina right around about maybe 1.5 years. Maybe approaching 2. And I'm like, what do I do? So I stay around for like a month, I think. A month or 2, I don't remember clearly. He's calling, bichi, lele nafune simu empya. Nangamba nyabo kumawe wamu. Kumawo makago.
Makwano, katumule munera. Tukome. Be hopeful show. tovaawo tukomawo tugenda mukumulamu katono naye tukyali ne Zani.
You're watching Be Hopeful. We'll be right back after the break. Bethany TV for health.
Tasty, tempting, and easily accessible, street foods have become a part of our culture. But have you ever stopped and wondered about its potential impact on your health? Worldwide, non-communicable diseases are a growing concern. Making informed choices for a healthier tomorrow. Street foods and non-communicable diseases. A journey towards wellness. On the Nutrition Spot this Thursday, 8 p.m. live on Bethany TV with our guests Anita Damali and Ganzi Ernest, nutritionists and dietitians. Hosted by Gift Nakainga.
Amanya gange nze Mugabo David kati omusawo gwe mbadde mbuuza ekibuuzo kyange nafuna accident naye namu pain mukono muno olumu bwe maaso togidoma ky'amazzi sula bulungi kulemu obulumi kati nkikoze ntyo kulanga mponya obulumi obwo kyembuuza omusawo boda yebantomera ne taxi yankoona naye nensuka saasobola kufa bantu alemerago ne banjanjabamu okwembu eddagala lyakuwandika kugula bibanja ninjambire wakabi nasobola ko binajanja bako binasobola
afuna accident ku boda taxi nemukoona ne kuva bwe yava mu ddwaliro agambye nti omukono gwe muli munda mu nnyingo akyawuliramu obulumi kati myaka gyaffe bw'otuuka ku myaka especially 25 n'okuzza engulu bufuna accident mu joints oba ennyingo usually kitwale ekiseera ennyingo ezo okuddamu okutereera bulungi wakati teeza mu accident ndoza taxi bwe yakukuba ennyingo ezo zimu of course zimu zaayulika kubanga wali ennyama ezikwata ennyingo ezo ennyama ezo oluusi ziyulika zeereega ate kati bwe ziyulika nga oli mukulumukko zitwala obudde okuddamu kweyunga bulungi kudda gye zaava kati kapeyini ako mubamu kasobola n'okumala emyaka 5 ne 6 almost kyalinamu kapeyini ako era bwe muva mu accidents ezo amagumba gamenyese joint yereeze oba n'ofuna shoka mu joint abasawo usually bakusindika mu basawo abalala wali ekitongole kye bayita physiotherapy bana bakola exercise abantu abo abasajja n'abakyala bakola mu department bakugu nnyo mu bintu ebyo era bamanyi bulungi okuddamu bakozesa exercise bakubuulira by'osobola okukola okuzza ennyingo ezo n'ennyama ezo ziri mu nnyingo okudda engulu gye zaava kuba kati ndoza kyolina ezi ennyingo eyo tennatereera bulungi ate tereeza kati ozze ku mulimu nange ebintu bwe bityo bya leero tudda ku mirimu mangu nga tetunawona ozze ku mulimu ozze ku boodayo oluusi musitula ennyingo eyo tennatereera otandise gikozesa so zekyengamba ndi mujje mu ddwaliro tunoonye abasawo baffe abakugu mu department ya physiotherapy baddemu bajja kuddamu bakubuulire by'osobola okukola ennyingo okugizza engulu kuba si kirungi nnyo okukozesa eddagala limu litukosa kati ng'eddagala lya pain likosa ekibumba bw'olikozesa nnyo eddagala lya pain likosa gundi ensigo bw'olikozesa nnyo so kiba kyagala ojje mu ddwaliro tukole assessments tukutestinge tulabe ennyingo eyo n'ennyama eziyunga ennyingo tulabe bwe ziri kujja ku ddwaliro bimu bye basobola okukola basobola kuddamu ebifaananyi waliwo ate ebifaananyi byanjawulo, waliwo kimu kye bayita x-ray, waliwo ekirala kye bayita sikaani ekyamaanyi, ne baddamu ne batunula muli ne balaba bapima balaba ennyingo ekyali etya, waliwo ennyama ezayulika bwe bityo. So kiba kyagala mujje mu ddwaliro tukole tests yo ne assessment.
Bethany TV for health. And now, more with Be Hopeful.
Be Hopeful show. Tukomyewo nate tuvuddeko mukuwummulamu gwe munnaffe atulaba ku Facebook namwe abali ku YouTube mwebala kubanga mutugoberera mwebala kubanga mulaba Be Hopeful. Ze Winnie Mbabazi omugenyi waffe ye Zani Favour. Kakati nze njagala kumanya omwami yakugambye eddayo eggulu, waddayo oba tewaddayo?
Nemugamba sigenda kuddayo kutusanga ze ne yeetonda. Najja ne yeetonda nafukamira bulungi nabagamba naye sijja kuddamu mukuba. Kati nga bakkiriza neme nekyemisana twali tufumbi nga ntula mu motoka nga nteeka mu bintu byange. That's after 2 months. That's 2018 now. And so I get in the car round about Matuga. He stops the car. He said,
ngolo tudde oddayo moto?
Yes, tuddayo. Era yali super custom. Nangamba gwe oyitiriza okugamba abantu nti nkukuba. Banange, the man changed. And I'm like, okay, I am dead. I'm like, I remember I had like 20K in my pocket. I was putting on shorts. Nengamba, I think I should run across the road, get a border in Twali. Naye nga tuli Matuga. Nga simanyi oba sente zo zikola ki? Zintuusa. Nangamba, get in the car, get in the car. Now, before he got in the car, he went and nafukamira mu kisiko. Nakaba maziga, he wailed, I don't know why you're doing this to me, blah, 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 blah. Ambisa mubwango. I don't want to tell you everything that happened. He gets in that, he's like, get in the car, he starts to drive like a madman. I literally thought we were going to crash. And I'm like, God, you've got to do something. I am sorry again, I've come to you with this issue, but do something. I think we are going to die this time. And guess what happened? I think about after an hour, nga avuga speed, emotoka ngezikira out of the blue. It could not move. Nga damu agitandika ngiigana. There's a cassette, I don't remember. Simanyi. Amafuta gali galaga nti mwegali. But it just went quiet. So we slept there. So he called for another car to come from Kampala. Nengamba tetufiridde ku kkubo. I feel that was the way God intervened.
Nenga gwera tokiraba nti Mukama agezaako ko stopping. Why didn't you just step out of that?
Banange, me, I loved my husband. I loved my marriage.
Wow.
Even with the pain,
That's
I did.
all I can say.
But also he would read to me scriptures like, God hates divorce. You can't do this. You have to be submissive. And I'm like, I'm going to try. So the car comes, we go, I'm rushing through it. We go back to Gulu. And then this one time, this is just what the story that my daughter reminded me yesterday, which I thought, meanwhile, she did not know. She reminded me, she's like, Mommy, what about this episode? You didn't talk about it. So she's like, there's this time he really got a long thing out of the car, like below the car, because he used to also do mechanics. I didn't know what he was holding. Me, I was running, but he was running, I was running, and he was running after me, but I didn't know what he was holding. So my girl yesterday told me that he was holding something which was from the car.
Like metallic?
Metallic. Nga chaduka okunkuba. Kati mukudduka kuno, I was like, let me buy time. Let me run like I've never run before because this is like 6 acres. Mudduse akowe. Bwanako wajja kwebaka. Meanwhile, I'm praying. I am running. I am praying. And then God helps me finally. He gets a muscle pull. Natandika okudduka nga wenyera what? But somehow, because now me, I'm tired, I am thinking, okay, he's not going to now run. I relax. He comes and grabs my head and puts me down in the dust. Nankulukunya, he put me in the dust. He made me eat dust. He pulled my hair. He's like, I started to shout. He's like, now you're shouting. Who is going to come and help you?
Where are you?
In the compound, somewhere outside.
The house where you used
out
to
of
live?
the house, yes. Yesterday, my daughter told me that during that episode, they saw everything and they went and locked themselves in their bedroom and they were shivering.
Oh my God.
You guys, I cannot tell you that I even knew that my kids knew what was happening.
Me, I don't want to go there because it is really painful. Now, when do you choose to leave that marriage?
That episode made me leave because after he pulled my hair, I was damaged. I nalisitegeera. Somehow, after that, he pulls my hair, blah, blah. I'm running through it. I run back to the house. My clothes are torn apart. I'm literally naked. I ran to the guest room. I locked myself in. He comes and brings a gas cylinder and bangs down that door. And then it got this whole thing crack and he opens. And he's like, you see? Wherever you're going to run, I'm going to come after you. Look into my eyes. I'm coming after you. Whether you go back to Kampala or not, I'm coming after you.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ever cheat in your marriage?
No. God being my witness, first of all, he cut off all my friends, all my family. He isolated me. I never had any friends, not even female friends. They're influencing me to leave my marriage.
So what was fusing all this anger that he had? Like, what?
I can't put my finger at it. I still can't. I still contemplate. And he made me think I was the wrong one. When you're trying to do the right thing, he says you were wrong.
But anyway, even if omuntu kaina kyakoze kyonna, omwana w'abandi bw'oba omukoyo oba mwenzu, mukwate omuzeeyo waabwe muveeko funa omukyalo omulala. Because I know, yes, Christianity tells us no divorce. Because once the covenant is done, it is done. You do not break the covenant. But also, waliwo ebintu ebyawandiikibwa mu Bayibuli. Omukyala engeri gy'olina omuyisa, naawe omukyala engeri gy'olina okuyisa omwami.
God hates divorce and he allows it because of the hardening of the hearts. Okay? Even as they used to read, he would read these scriptures to me. I don't even understand it because why would he justify his actions? Because God hates divorce. Now, I'm trying to really rush through this. So
you choose to leave?
No. After that episode, in the night, I don't sleep. Things that happen in the bedroom, stuff like that. And then in the morning.
Things happened in the bedroom?
Yes.
That night?
Yes. There's no day he would find that it wasn't, you know. And so there was this lady who had come to plait the kids' hair because we had already made the program. She came. Certain things happened there that will take even longer time. But on that day when I decided to leave, he told me, look in my eyes. He came and told me, come here, look in my eyes. You're going to write something more like a contract and you're going to sign on it. And you're going to tell me, I'm going to tell you what to write. Get a paper, get a pen. I start to write down. He's like, start, number 1, I will never ask for a divorce. Number 2, I will never run out of my marriage. There were about 10 points. And then he told me to sign. Meanwhile, he had taken away my phones, my identity cards, everything. So after I signed, he's like, that day was a Sunday, we had been to church. And then I had cried during the service because I was in pain. And then he's like, when we were traveling in church, when we were in church, I saw that you were remorseful. You're going to be a good girl now.
Wait, you know, I'm running short of questions right now. The church where you went to, did you ever share with your elders?
Remember, yes, I told you I had shared with Watoto because it was where we were going.
Oh, okay.
I had shared with them. They knew the things that were happening.
Nainga wabera mu church pretending to be the best husband.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
He's very talkative. I'm not very talkative, even though I'm telling the story. I'm trying to, like, you know, kind of bring out in normal life. I'm not very, very talkative, and so I'm trying to go back to what I was talking
signed
about. I signed the thing. He's like, you were very remorseful in church, so you're going to be a good girl and you're going to follow my rules. Now he tells me, come and stand here, and I want you to look in my eyes. His eyes were always red. He's like, I want you to know that if you fail one of these rules today, I am going to lock you up in one of these rooms in the house, and no one will ever hear from you again. Nja kubagamba nti wazzemu n'onoba kuba bulijjo onoba n'ogenda n'ondeeta n'onfukamiza mu bazadde bo. Ku luno nja bagamba wagendera ddala nange simanyi gy'oli.
Ofiira omwo.
In that moment, I heard a voice, a clear voice, tell me, if you don't get out of this place, you're going to die. I perceived that it was the voice of God. And so at that moment, I said, yes, I am going to be at my best. Everything I'm saying, yes, yes. So he gets my phone, he gets my identity cards. Katimu, in that moment, I'm like, God, if you want me to go, I want you to help me get money to go. I had not been in the shops for a very long time. Somehow, someone gives me money from the maid's phone. Maybe this is a scam. So somehow they send money. I'm like, okay. I call the border man. I'm like, tomorrow at 6 a.m. I want you to come for me. In that moment, nangamba kati ngenda Kampala. I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. This is my way out. I organize. Things in the bedroom happen. At this point, I was literally dead, emotionally dead. Ngomufu. Naye mbazayo kwe katono nnyo emabega nti natuuka ekiseera nenjagala okugulira abantu omugulira abasajja bamukube. I wanted to pay off some men to beat him properly, to be able to, so that he can feel the pain.
I know.
But then my heart. My God would never allow me to do that. And I'm like, I would never allow anyone to change me. I was not that kind of person who wanted to seek revenge.
And you would not play the Anna.
If it had reached there, I'm like, I'm done. Kati, I am not going back again. And so he went, things finished in the bedroom. He's like, I pack for me my clothes. I pack everything. He goes. Bananga, you guys, I counted every minute, every second I was left. Now, I was betoning between, do I take my kids? Where am I taking them? Where am I beginning from? And so, at 6 a.m., I leave the house, I leave them with a maid, and I'm like, take care of them. When the time is right, they will see me. Kuluno nensibo mutima. Nengamba, I've got to hang on to this. Since I had a voice, I need to get out. Echisinga. No, I'm going to be alive. I will not ever forgive myself if my kids had to come to my graveyard to cry, if there would even be a graveyard.
Yeah.
So I left. I came to Kampala. I started to figure out life. I first went to my mom's, and then he came. In that 1 week, he came back. He told the kids, go tell your mom to come, and we go home. I told them I'm not coming. They cried in my face. It broke me. It tore me to pieces. But I said I'm not going back for the sake of my life. Because I want to fight for them. But I cannot fight for them when I'm dead. I've got to be strong for this one point. And so I had to leave my mom's place. I went and
found. He doesn't know.
Yes. I borrowed some money, about 300,000. I went and stayed in a small, tiny room in Nansan again. And I'm like, okay, God, I can choose to give up, but you're the only source of hope I have. So I want you to, me and you this time, tell me where I went wrong. Because I've tried everything to keep this marriage going.
Yes.
I want you to tell me.
I understand.
I had done everything. I tried everything in this world to make sure that this could just happen. And I told God, I'm not giving up.
I'm sorry.
And I needed him to still give me confirmation that it was okay for me to leave, because I didn't want to make my God angry by leaving a marriage and then I go through divorce. I told him, God, speak to me. I sought for answers from pastors. I went to Mutundo. I went everywhere seeking for answers from these pastors. And you were married in church? Oh, I cannot tell you anything.
Bannange endagaano zino tuzaagala naye nga nazo zituuka ne zitufuulikira ekizibu.
My people out there who want to be married, and I always tell this too, I go to singles gatherings and I talk to them. You desperately want that, but you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
I'm telling you.
You don't know what you're asking for. You don't even know if you're ready for it. I wasn't ready. Even though I was ready to fight to see that everything just stays.
Abawala babeera eyo n'obasanga ng'ali too desperate ennaku zino beekwanira n'abasajja.
You don't know, and you might be out there and you're saying, well, my story cannot be like your story. Sweetheart, I never desired to go through the pain. I never expected any of it. I never expected that after 7 years I would fail in a marriage. How would people look at me? I got stigma from so many of my friends. I lost friends. I lost people. I was one like this. I had to go through that pain. My family was not understanding me. Everything was just confusion.
I understand.
I have not said so many things. And to my viewers, like I said, there will be a book that will come out maybe at the end of the year for you to know how everything was, because the Lord has put it on my heart to share it. And like I said in the beginning of the last part, yesterday's part, I do not say this to tarnish his name. I want us to learn lessons from this. I have learned so many lessons on this journey. I've gone through a journey of healing. It has not taken, short time. I relate with people and I am so defensive. I have so much hope in God that my situation is changing. But you don't want to go into something and you don't know how it's going to be. We all never know. But make sure you always inquire from God. If I'm to take you back when we were dating, he got an anger, something. I don't know what we had done. Just a simple fight. And I told him, you know what, I'm calling off this wedding. In that moment, he got so angry, he got the phone and threw it across the room. It got into pieces. I got frightened, but that was supposed to be an eye-opener for me.
A red flag.
But he cried. No, you cannot leave me.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. I cannot live without you. I was so... My heart. I'm so emotional.
And they ignore those things. In fact, some of them, because they are desperate. They really want to get married. So, but these are things that we go through and you see it and you're like, the moment you're like, oli mu relationship, omuntu wakamala naye emyezi, nayo ino obuntu tubolaba obukanga omutima gwo. We shouldn't ignore those things. Yes. In fact, tomorrow, we have a show. It's a ladies' show. It is Arise Woman. It happens every Friday. So, but we talk about those small things about women and girls. So our topic last week and tomorrow will be dating. So we are taking people through understanding what dating is, the do's and don'ts. So during dating, those are the small things that happen. Nolabo musajja I normally, someone was telling me, now there's this man yankubidde essimu ate nga nesitamukwata n'amala wiiki nga tankubira. That is good enough to show you that this man can walk away and leave you in marriage, because if you can miss his one call and he spends a week without calling. Obuntu obwo kati gwogenze ku date omusajja anyiza ayasizza essimu. But you could not wake up to say, naye omusajja ono bwe tuba tukyali bwe tuti mu love ento nga he could smash the phone like that. Won't he smash me?
I never thought about it. I don't know what else I wanted to share right there, but
yeah, but let's go back to now. You refuse to go back even when the kids come to bed.
Yes, I refused to go back. I went and searched out for God. I prayed day and night.
I started. You had stopped when you're praying.
Then I heard about Motunde radio, and I'm like, I'm going to sit on this radio. I'm like, God, let's make a deal. If I can hear someone who has my story, at least 50%, maybe I'll go back if you want me to go back. But if I don't hear, I'm staying right here. Meanwhile, I need you to speak. Not that I was demanding God, but this time I was in pain, emotionally, physically. You can think about it. And then one time I got a dream in the middle there, and God was, and in the dream someone was telling me that I am going to send you a man who is going to help wipe away your tears. The tears that this person, he mentioned their name, that he made you cry.
A man like man husband?
He's just said a man.
Okay.
I don't know if it is a husband.
I'm now excited. I don't even know. So which year are we talking about now?
That is still 2018, in the middle there. So I decided, my kids, I couldn't live away from them. He had kept them away from me completely. I could not speak to them on phone. My heart was in pain, tangible pain. And every time I went down on my knees, I would wail and cry. And I'm like, God, my kids, this is killing me. I almost decided to go back again.
I understand you. I do understand.
I was in so much pain. I would dream about my kids being beaten. I would dream about them sick. I have this gift of dreaming, and I can see. I know when something is wrong because I knew my kids. But then I'm like, God, I cannot go back because I'm going to die. He then promised, I saw in a dream that I had now gotten my kids and were living alone, just me and the kids. I hung on to that word and I prayed day and night. I'm like, okay, God, so what do you want me to do? Then I got a dream and I saw a word, know God. And I'm like, you want me to know you? I'm like, but God, I've been saved. Yes, like knowing God. I'm like, but God, I've been saved. He's like, no, you don't know me. We don't have that companionship. I want you to know me. Get to know me. So I started to go and seek my King, my love. He gave me a scripture in Isaiah 54. I am your maker and your husband. And that comforted me. He said, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to take away the shame of your youth.
Hallelujah.
And then I hung on to that word. I still had questions why these things had happened. But I decided, let me read my scripture, my Bible. The answers I was seeking from the pastors, no one gave me. And God told me, one day I even grumbled in my mind. I'm like, but God, how come no one is telling me anything?
Already you wali ogambye okuwuliriza n'ogamba gyawulirako stories. Wawulirako
Sina kye nawulira. Ne mestra nengende emutunde nengeza kolaba Pastor Vicky. No one could help me and I grumbled. Then in the night, I got a dream and someone was telling me, why do you keep grumbling? I want you to come to me. And then I'm like, okay, I need to come back and start to search out for this man who loves me, my God. And then I started praying day and night. I would not skip, day and night. I looked for jobs everywhere and nothing. Meanwhile, I would stay hungry. But now I wanted my kids. And I'm like, God, there has to be a way. So by faith, I started speaking to some people who by now had gotten to know some of the things. Told them, people, I need help. What? And someone raised some money, about $100. Ningina ninonye nyumba endala. Nganonye nyumba where I can take my kids and the lawyers can come and see that they are safe.
Yeah, you're stable enough to do.
By faith, I paid that money to a 400,000 shilling house. N'abasajja abansengula nalina omufaliso ne ka gas ne radio gye nali mpulirizaako nensabirako ne baŋŋamba naye gwe oli musiru. How do you come to such an expensive house and you don't even have anything? Are you stupid? I'm like, people, you don't know I love my children. This is the only reason I'm doing it. By faith, I walked into that house and I made it an altar and I started to pray day and night. I started surfing at the church that the Lord had led me to. Meanwhile, I go to Mutundu. Now I'm just really running through things. Yeah. A lot happened in that season. All I can say that everything that happened, God was teaching me. He connected me to Pastor Chimuli in Kololo, Apostle Michael Chimuli. He fathered me and he taught me some things. And Nanumbayo, my ex-husband, started looking for me from there. Meanwhile, my friends, the Lord is so gracious. The Lord would give me dreams every time I would probably land in his space. Like, for example, I would dream that I'm like going to pass this side and then he's there. So I'm like, in the morning, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to use that road. I'm not even going to go out of the house. That is how God protected me, because he was after me. He would track my phone calls. The beauty about all this is that God communicated every single step of it, to the point that after we deal with, I'm really running through this, we go through, someone connects me with someone like a lawyer who helped me do these things of divorce for free. And these people would call me, they're like, are you really sure you want to leave your marriage? I'm like, people, you don't have an idea. By this time, my mind was totally made up. Immediately, I heard from God. And anyone will say, God will never, side with you breaking up a marriage. Just like he allowed the wrong marriage, he can still allow me getting
that wrong
out.
Marriage too. Yeah. So now you finally got a divorce.
Yes.
When do you get your kids?
I get my kids at the end of the year. Yeah, the people who want to know more details will buy the book. At the end of the year, he brings them, like court tells him to bring them back. He brings them with no cloth, no money.
It is okay.
I stayed with those kids and I'm like, God, you said you're my husband. So that means you're the father to these children.
And you'll teach them.
It was a hard life, that's for sure. People from the new church stood by me. They, one would chip in with 50,000, one would bring food. They really cared. But I was stigmatized by the rest of the society, knowing that I was going through divorce, especially even with my old friends. And I don't blame them. No one could have understood the situation I was in. So after like 2 years, I don't want to go through all that because there was a little more suffering with the children without food and anything. And I tried. The court had to bring him to Page, and even they decided to even give him a warrant of arrest because he was not contributing to the kids' welfare. And that day, as I leave court and they've issued a warrant of arrest, I hear the word mercy in a very still small voice, my friends. And then I turn back and I go to court and I tell them, do not imprison him. And everyone's like, what? Are you mad? This one time God has given this man to you. You're not going to do anything about it? I told them no. Mercy. Emirembe jikulukuta ye Yesu wange. I choose to forgive him and I have nothing against him. And my view was, forgiveness is a daily journey because you forgive this person today, tomorrow they will do something to provoke you, tomorrow you will hear things being spoken, but I chose forgiveness.
Oh, no. And because you talk about it does not mean that you hate him.
I don't hate him because I'll just tell you one more little story before I get into the ministry part, and I know our time is fast spent. This one time I fast and pray 3 days. I'm like, God, I want my children. So now I kind of open up my phone. I'm like, please bring the kids. I try to like really sweet talk him. And so he's like, okay, in a baleta. So they come to Kampala. I left my room. I went to my mom's. Ngasagala manyiwa wembera. Netugende wa mami. Naja. Nantunulira. Smiling. Nangamba olabe motoka eyo, he had packed things for the shop. Nangamba, all that is capital for you. Get in the car, let's go to Gulu. Bichi byokole Kampala. Lwaki weeyiya? Come back to the money. Then I told him, you know what? We agreed you're bringing the children. Not so? Yes, that was the third day of my fasting. He refused. He got the kids. Nagama, go back to the car. Kati nemanya nti bwetusigalawo fembi ayinza okunkola ekintu. I cornered and went into the bedroom and I locked myself. And then he waited, he started quarreling. Then again, agenda yekana agenda. So I called my brother immediately. I'm like, can I see you? Ngani no wonkenke bunji. I went to meet him. Now my brother told me one thing. He's like, you're a prayerful woman and I know God answers your prayers. How come this time he has not answered you about your children? He challenged me. And I told him, but wait a minute, I am in my third day of fasting. Nali, I didn't even have food to break my fast. Meanwhile. So he's like, let me share my food with you, Bichi. Contemplating, you know what? My God is going to answer.
And he answered.
At 10 p.m., my friend, I get a strange phone call because I was using a new number. And the person is like, Nyabo, there's been an accident. Come for your children. I'm like, what happened? Katingoli nga mkwati nga mujake simu nga yogira. This man was so strong-hearted, if I may say. He said, hey, olaba wandoze kakati changoba chime osinze. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I'm like, forgive my language. I'm like, is it a setup? Does he want to finish me once and for all?
You weren't sure.
I wasn't sure. So in the morning, I'm like, I cannot travel in the night. I'll come in the morning. Okay. So I get the phone. I call his brother. I'm like, you know what? I'm told your brother got an accident. Can we go together? I just want to make sure I am safe. So we go back to Gulu. I find him all ngajudo musai.
Abaana nga bali bati.
Abaana nga waliwo abalina.
Nga tebalina buzibu bonna.
Nga tebalina buzibu bonna. Yali akonya omusajja ku boda nga afudde. That's another stretch altogether and awonja bateerawo okukoma. Okay.
Abaana wabafuna.
Abaana nembafuna. At some point after we've gone through the court and everything, God gave me a very good magistrate. She was really, very sympathizing. Then I get the kids, I go through the time, like 1 or 2 years with nga nenoonya ngezezaako okunoonya kino nenkola kino nenfumba ku mmere okuwa ku bantu nenjoza ku ngoye z'abantu byonna nagezaako bikola. But meanwhile God was trying to get my attention to serve him. And so one of those days I had money and it wasn't enough. Ngankoyo kubeera in need. And then I told God, what do I do? I'm tired of being in need. Sagala kutandika kwebaka n'abasajja to take care of my children because there's that temptation. I'm a beautiful woman, Anyone will come, they want to sleep with me. And I had so many struggles. And then I was also in pain. I was fighting trauma. Dreams, I have got nightmares, like so many things that were mixed up in my life. And then this money I had about 50,000. Because it was not enough, God had was teaching me something in this period of time. So I get the 50, I start to split it up and start giving it to the single moms that I had known during that time. And they all thanked me, they were so happy. I was like, this is nice. Then in like an hour, someone sends me 100,000. He's like, please go buy food. I'm like, even this 100,000 is not going to be enough for us. I got it, I split it, I still gave it to the single moms I knew. At the last minute, that was around Christmas. On Christmas Eve at around 4 p.m., someone calls me, like, did you guys get food for Christmas? I'm like, no, not yet. He's like, I have $100 here. Please come for it. And I'm like, whoa.
You discovered yourself.
I discovered myself. And so slowly by slowly, God taught me that this is what he wanted me to do. Today, he allowed me to fight all those battles, to fight my pain, to fight my trauma, to go through the spiritual battles. When I got my children, I had to go down on my knees, pray for them every day, because they used to get sick a lot. There's so much I went through my process of healing.
And that's what makes you today the warrior
woman.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. So, naye kasita omala olonkinga akatabo tujja kukomawo tuwogere kubanga bintu bingi nnyo abaana bye balina oyiga, you know, because like you said in the beginning, you're not telling this story to ashame this person or because you have hate, but because you want people to learn from the story. Kubanga story yo erimu a lot of mistakes you made. Ebintu ebimu tewali biyiseemu singa wakola okusalawo mangu. Ebintu ebimu tewali birozezza nako singa watunula bulungi ne weetegereza oba singa wakiwa time. In fact kyenkugambye nti musheno twogera ddi dating process lwalina okugenda naye ne weemala omwaka waliwo ebintu byosobola okulaba in that period of year naye n'obi-ignoringa.
Sure.
So I'm sure we shall bring you back because your story is very touching. I'm telling you, you don't want to see the comments that we have. People come in my inbox, they're so
for anyone who wants to find out more about my ministry, you go to www.warriorwomanministry.org. www.warriorwomanministry.org. I take care, I do missions with the widows and single moms. We go to villages, I collect clothes, shoes from friends. If you feel in your heart that you need to donate to this ministry, I wanted to also say that I don't do it because I profit out of it. I do it because I have a heart. My mom is a widow. I am now a single mother. I know the pain of not having food on the table. Besides every other thing I have gone through, the pain, I have to now raise my children single-handedly. Do I want to get married? Yes, at some point I know the Lord will allow it happen. For now, let me serve him.
Okay, that's wonderful. Nga sinaba kusibula bantu. Sophie yali mfumbo oba nedda kati tubyogerako tubireke.
I'm told she did kwanjula with another man.
Okay.
And this gentleman, my ex-husband, he got another lady. They gave birth to a child.
Oh, it has been a very beautiful journey. I have enjoyed so much. I have been inspired by your story, and I'm sure everyone who watched these episodes have been blessed. Olwakadde tetugenda kuba nga tusukkawo wano ebisingako mujja kuba mubiraba tugambye agenda kulonkinga akatabo. Oli awo bw'anaaba agenda okulonkinga akatabo naddamu n'atubuulirako ebitonotono naye ndowooza ne lw'oba olonkinga tujja kumanya tujje tukuwagire. Be Hopeful Show bwetyo bwetambudde olunaku olwaleero naye nga ebintu zani byanyumiza ndowooza mubiwulidde. Mulimu ebintu ebimu nga oba oli awo yalina okusalawo amangu n'atasalawo n'abeera ng'ate ayita mu byayitamu naye ate oluvannyuma lwa byonna ate tukiraba nti ensonga lwaki alina okuyita mu byayitamu, it is because of her calling, that purpose. Oluusi erina byekuyisaamu kati bwe olina challenge gy'oyitamu akaseera kano njogera naawe gwalaba Bethany TV oyinza okuba nga olina okunyigirizibwa kw'oyitamu oba ku mulimu awo naye Mukama eyo training ground kubanga ayina